Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and glad to be here. I've been snowed in. If anybody's seen the weather in northern Indiana, yeah, I got like 30 inches of snow. It's been fun. It's been fun. Plenty of time to sit back and listen to my night's guest, Preston Dennett. We've had him on. It's been a year or two. But man, I've been looking forward to this interview. I've been listening to his YouTube channel today since I didn't have to work. Snowed in, right? Snow day! And really, you got to check out Preston Dennett. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with Preston. Heatherweight fans that come over and listen to this show. He used to be one of my, I know when I'd listen to Heather's show, he'd be one of my favorite guests to have on. And it's an honor to have him back on the show tonight. We're going to talk about all things going on in the UFO world a lot. I can't wait to get Preston's opinion on the supposed UFO disclosure or all these humanoid alien sightings we're having lately into the end of 2023 and beginning in 2024. I can't wait to get his thoughts on that, and you can call in and get your thoughts from Preston. Later in the show, we'll open up the phone lines. And, of course, we got a lot of weird to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird. A lot of weird news stories, as usual. So let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest is actually joining us here right now in the World Wide Web of Weird. I want to make sure we are working all and good. How you doing tonight, Preston? It's an honor to have you back on the show.
Doing good. Doing very well. Hope you are too.
Yeah, and we're going to cover some news stories here, and then we're going to have your interview after the next commercial break. You're welcome to join us. Jump in any time. Anything you want to add to the news stories we're covering, feel free. I love having other people's perspectives on this. And one of the perspectives I enjoy the most is from my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you.
I was telling you before the show, I missed Weird Wednesday this last Wednesday. I'm like, I didn't get to see what the guys covered. So we were talking about, there's a couple overlaps we have from Weird Wednesday to talk about. Some continuing stories that both of us have covered that we definitely got to talk about, and some exploding toilets in Florida, you know. Speaking of Florida, we got Rob Autry from St. Augustine, Florida. How you doing tonight, Rob? No exploding toilets where you are, right?
No, leaky but not exploding.
You just don't go to Dunkin' Donuts. We'll get to that. But we got a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we're going to continue on. We'll talk later tonight, too, with Preston Dennett about the continuing UFO disclosure. Of course, last week we showed Jeremy Corbell's jellyfish UFO video and discussed, is it an alien, is it a transformer, or is it a guy in a jetpack? I don't know, but jellyfish is the common description of this. So, later tonight, Preston, I want to talk about humanoid aliens, and maybe we're going to have a new category of jellyfish aliens. Of course, what the Pentagon had to say on this, you can quite imagine. You can imagine. It is very interesting. Here, let me go ahead and pull up. Oh, Rob's searching for it. You should have. Did you not get in the link? To the Dropbox? Or he's trying. Well, Rob tries on it. If you guys remember last week, we showed the jellyfish UFO video footage. I don't have it this week. You can go back to watch last week. So, or you can find it all over the place. Jeremy Corbell released this a couple weeks ago. A spokesperson, though, from the Department of Defense has issued a statement regarding this footage that emerged earlier this month. The intriguing video, which shows a supposedly cloaked, jellyfish-shaped object moving over a U.S. military base, was captured on thermal imaging camera. It gained traction with UFO investigator Jeremy Corbell, who maintained that someone in the military had taken great risks to get him the footage, shared it online earlier this month. It goes over a body of water, he says at the time. I'm told it stops on a dime. I want to see this part. Descends stiff into the water, and for 17 minutes, nothing, and boom, this thing comes out of the water and shoots off at 45 degrees. Now, in further development to the story, a spokesperson for the Department of Defense, Sue Gao, has come forward to issue an official statement in response to the question regarding the video. Ready? Let me get the share screen up here. All right, official statement from the Pentagon. We do not comment on the authenticity of alleged DoD materials that may have been leaked, she said. So that's not a denial. That's what so you're not denying it. This is typical. DoD takes public interest in an unidentified anomalous phenomenon seriously and is committed to openness and accountability to the American people. The commitment must be balanced with the department's obligation to protect sensitive information, sources, and methods. The statement has been hailed as a possible sign that the video may be authentic. And I must say it's very revealing for what it doesn't say, says News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthart. It does reveal a categorical denial. I'm sure you've seen the jellyfish footage, Preston, right?
Oh, yeah, of course, many times.
What's your thoughts on it? Now, we were debating last week, and I think there's a guy with Skywalker or John Skywalker. I don't know. He's been doing some really good footage of this.
Luke Skywatcher.
He just goes by Luke Skywalker. I should have known.
Skywatcher.
Luke Skywatcher. That's why I'm getting all confused. Anyways, he does some really good comparison photos of some of the jetpack technology out there and what people are using, and this is possible. But I heard the witnesses saying that they could not see this with their eyes. It could only be seen with thermal imaging, so it was invisible.
Yeah, well, that's certainly unusual, isn't it? I've also seen comparisons of this being possibly a balloon of some kind, which, the way it moves in a straight line, it's not showing the observables we often see with genuine ET
balloons.
Craft. And it certainly doesn't look like an ET craft at all. So I don't know. I'm on the fence about this one.
You see, I always feel like the stuff that gets leaked is sometimes explainable. Like they do it on purpose. Like they leak something and like we get it and like, ooh, it looks crazy. But they already got the explanation, hidden.
Well, if this is starting off at a 45-degree angle, show us that. If it's coming in and out of the water.
I want to see it going in and out of the Yeah, show us that. Show me it going in and out of the water. That will be that would be awesome. I want to see that footage. Maybe it's coming. Maybe Jeremy's trying to get it from, I don't know. But I want to see that footage. I mean, think about it if this was a jetpack. I know we got to move on here, but I said this last week. What a great way to insert your tactical team if you guys all have these scuba diving jetpack things that can go in and out of the water, get you tactically inserted into a location and out again. This could have been a total military test of some kind of technology that's classified. From their statements, it sounds like they're a bit perturbed. They don't like the leaked information.
Yeah, it's a very strange object. It's very amorphous. If this is really over a sensitive installation, why didn't they shoot it down? I understand that it's not visible, but they have detectors on it.
Maybe,
It's penetrated your airspace. You think they'd all be a little more like, hey, let's start shooting at that thing.
and maybe they're perturbed because they just don't want their enemies to know what kind of top secret like advantage they might have like that.
Yeah.
The Luke Skywatcher did mention too that there are some jetpacks that do have that capability where the hose would go down and be able to go into the water and propel back out. But I haven't seen it yet.
What a perfect insertion tool for Navy SEALs. That's what I'm saying, if that's that kind of technology. But we got to move on.
I think it's
We gotta
more
move on.
likely us than them, but we'll see.
Right, that's what I think too. Yeah. All right, moving on. We've continuing stories for us as we've been covering our mission to the moon. We got to go to the moon first, right? Or again, right? I don't know. Oh, God. Unexplained Mysteries has this with a shorter article on it. It's hard to believe that it's been over 50 years. It is really hard to believe since humans last went to the moon, but now thanks to NASA's Artemis program, it looks as though we won't have to wait too long for a return visit. Or, wait, that said, the space agency has announced last week they'll likely have to wait just a little bit longer. Oh, Artemis 1, which saw an unmanned spacecraft orbit the moon, launched on November 16th, 2022, while Artemis 2 was essentially a crude version of the same mission, had been set to launch later this year. Artemis 3, which will see the first humans land on the lunar surface since Apollo program, has been planned for 2025. Now, according to NASA, both Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 have been pushed back another year, meaning that the earliest we are likely to see a crewed orbit of the moon is September 2025. Are they going to start just delaying these things like Disney delays movies? I mean, or is it what we're going to get? It's coming, and we're delaying again.
Well,
I mean, seriously.
They couldn't land the unmanned thing on the moon a couple of weeks ago, so.
Well, that wasn't us. Was that Mexico? Everybody's trying to go to the moon. And I said this could be why the disclosure is happening, is because everybody's vying to get back to the moon. And my opinion is that's where you're going to find some alien stuff. Just my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think the evidence is pretty good. There's stuff up there, and I find it odd that, now that computer technology has advanced so much, it took a room full of computers to get there back in the...
A stack of code written out by hand like this tall by a lady. Remember that?
And now you can take pretty much a cell phone and have all the technology you need to navigate there.
But the technology was lost, Preston. It was lost. Have you not heard that? It was lost. How do you lose that kind of technology? That's a rabbit hole we can't go into right now. Maybe later. All right, let's move on. Continuing on in the UFO world. This is another continuing story for us. Remember we talked about back in October about alien mummies from Peru. Yes. Captured at the airport. Well, the new article on it is scientists have conducted a new analysis of the pint-sized mummies to determine what they were made of. The alleged extraterrestrials made headline news when they mysteriously showed up at Lima Airport office, courier of DHL, in cardboard box back in October last year. At that time, the discovery prompted speculation that these could be mummified remains of alien entities that had been buried long ago, and then later excavated at archaeological sites in Peru. This peculiar proportions and tiny size made them particularly perplexing. Now, though, a new scientific analysis of the alleged aliens has revealed that they are in fact little more than dolls created from the combination of human and animal skeletal remains. They are not extraterrestrials, said archaeologist Fabio Estrada of Peru's Institute of Legal Medicine and Forensic Science. They're dolls made with animal bones from this planet joined together with modern synthetic glue. It's a total made-up story. Now, it goes on to say these are not connected to Jaime Maussan and the whole Peru alien mummies. But you remember we had Barry what's his name? Barry Fitzgerald on, and Steve Mera, who went down there. And remember what they said about those Peru Jaime Maussan's mummies? What they found was that they were combined with human and animal remains. Just like these. And it's very popular because they know a lot of gringos are coming down, like, give me some alien evidence. And, they're taking stuff from archaeological sites and screwing with them. I don't know. I know Guy is really into the Peruvian aliens, Preston. I am not.
This is not my area of expertise, but I do know a medical professional who's also a contactee, and she took one look at it and said, there's just no way.
Yeah.
The skeletal structure is not at all congruent with a living being.
Yeah, like how do they move their shoulders or walk? Do they waddle?
Right.
Sorry. I'm not going to get into it because I know some people are really going to die on that hill with the Peruvian mummies, but I will move on. All right, next up, we got, so this is going around. Is this a ghostly encounter? Could this be, I mean, very solid ghostly encounter, in my opinion, or it could be, you know, it could be that. Ghostly woman seen at Mexican cemetery prompts police respond. I only have little short clips from the video, but it goes on quite a bit. Odd video making the rounds on social media in Mexico shows the first moments when police respond to a report of a ghostly woman lingering outside a cemetery and wind up encountering an eerie apparition. Well, she was pretty solid. And the strange incident occurred earlier this week in the community of Lulz when a mysterious stranger appeared at the entrance to a graveyard in what seems to have been the middle of the night. A resident who spotted the woman was understandably perturbed by her presence and promptly called 911 to report the strange situation. When officers arrived on the scene, they quickly located the eerie interloper and attempted to get to the bottom of her inexplicable visit, though they found themselves flummoxed by the encounter. Rather than respond to the cops, one witness recalled the woman started walking and making weird noises and then knelt. She is said to have then wandered off into the bottom of the quarry while police tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Calling the encounter scary, witness went on to muse that it wasn't normal. Cops did eventually glean some information from the woman who told them that she was looking for her son. That's very La Llorona. I'm just saying. I get that part. Okay, go ahead and play the video. I think this is more. But okay. I don't know if I had audio on this. It's all right. You wouldn't. I don't know. No habla español. So this is the woman at the gate, and then she later is like sitting down here, and this goes on for like minutes. She just sits there, and they're like trying to talk to her, and she's just not responding. And then she just like walks off in the distance. I just want to know what happened. I don't think the cops would just let her. Did they just let her go, walk off in a quarry in the middle of the night on her own, no flashlight? Were they that spooked? I think it's private property. I would think, she shouldn't be there. But a lot of people think it's a ghostly encounter. I don't know.
Was that the ghost, the little thing standing there making a
the
shot?
girl that was like nailing down? There she is at the entrance there, and then you'll see there's another shot of her there. She's kneeling down.
Okay, I don't see the ghost.
No, she's a solid woman. That's what I'm saying. They think that they had like, yeah. I mean, I get it. I've had my encounters, and people have, where you encounter a ghost, you don't know it's a ghost because they're physically solid and real. But most of the time, we've had those videos of those people seeing that, and they think somebody's solid and real, but the video camera doesn't capture them.
I've had a solid and real, but that looks
lots of people
way
have.
too real.
Yeah, I think, like I said. All right, let's move on. I love this story. I saw this. This is really heart touching because my childhood was really a lot of Three's Company reruns. And Suzanne Summers' husband reveals possible afterlife communications with late actresses. And these are my favorite paranormal stories. You've heard me say it a billion times. Are these ones where loved ones come and let the person know they're all right. And this is that kind of story. And really huge kudos to her husband, Alan Hamill, who shared this. All right, so the husband of Susan Summers, and I got this from Coast to Coast, Tim Binnall's shorter article, believes that the late actress visited him from the other side by way of series of eerie events that occurred in their home following her passing. Alan Hamill, who is married to the Three's Company star for almost 50 years, shared the wondrous experience in an interview with the website Page 6, wherein he recalled how 3 particular curious moments unfolded over the course of one day. The weirdness began, he said, when a hummingbird managed to get into their house and flew around the residence until it finally landed on the picture of him and his wife. However, this was just the start of what he later concluded was a message from his departed wife. According to Hamill, the fireplace in their home then suddenly started all by itself, which was then followed by an even stranger turn of events when some music came on by Suzanne's favorite composer. The trio's curious moments understandably had a profound effect on him as he declared, "I'm a believer now. There is in an afterlife. I'm convinced of it." The widower went on to theorize that although we discard our bodies at the moment of death, the soul must go somewhere and do something. There's a lot more to the story he tells if you go to the Page 6 original article. I just don't have time to cover it all, but it's really beautiful when people share these moments, and that he felt comfortable enough, don't care if he's criticized for it or not, to share this really personal experience of his wife who he lost. They were married for 50 years. You got to imagine their connection. And to share these experiences, like I said, when people share me paranormal experiences, it's a lot of times it's ones like these, and I always feel so honored. So more power to
I
you.
heard a survey that some 70% of spouses who lose a spouse, have some kind of event like this. So it doesn't surprise me a bit. I think
And that's
people
only,
know- yeah.
and not everybody's willing to talk about it because it's so personal. You
So
know, there's lots of,
personal.
so many people probably have these experiences and never talk about it because of how personal it is. So that's why I always feel honored when people do. All right, I kind of led with this one earlier. We'll get to the exploding toilet because it's Florida, man. Florida man suing over exploding toilet in a Dunkin' Donuts. According to reports, Paul Kurak had been in the men's rooms of a Florida branch of Dunkin' Donuts back in 2022, and I think we covered this about the exploding toilet back then. When out of nowhere, one of the toilets exploded right next to him. Shocked, drenched in toilet water, and covered it from head to toe in debris and human waste, the unfortunate man staggered out of the toilets in an attempt to find the branch manager. I think he's got a complaint,
Hate it when that happens.
right?
It's a new
Legal
name, Dunkin'.
Yeah. Man, that Dunkin' Donuts coffee is something. I can imagine how bad that toilet is. Legal papers later filed against the company noted that the manager told him that they had been aware of problems with a particular toilet, but seemingly hadn't done anything about it. What kind of problems are you having with a toilet that would explode? I'm not a plumber. Anybody help me on that one?
They'll probably give him free coffee.
An
and
M40
food.
going down the toilet. Yeah, that might have done it.
Doesn't sound good. Whatever's going
Yeah.
on.
Kerouac is now seeking $100,000 in damages, having suffered severe and long-term injuries, which left him requiring mental health care and counseling. He can never go in a public bathroom ever again for the rest of his life. Right?
Toilet trauma. All right.
Yeah, toilet trauma. Every time he sits down, you know. As a direct result, branch and or multiple breaches of its duties and obligations to Mr. Kerouac was lawfully on the store's premises. Mr. Kerouac unwillingly became the victim of an exploding toilet, and the aftermath, which followed, sustained damages, including long-term injuries and emotional and mental distress. Yeah, he'll probably win. I mean, some manager said, "Yeah, we knew that toilet had problems." When he came out, I would have bet.
That's
And
a mission.
Yeah, right there. And they're like, you knew it had problems.
What
I
kind of
mean-
problems would make it explode, though?
Right. Only that I'm thinking is that guy was in that stall and some kid went in there and threw an M40 in the toilet next to it and ran for his life. And then when that guy came out, the manager's like, yeah, knew that toilet had problems. And then he's like, lawsuit.
On yachts, I think what happens is like if one toilet gets stopped up, somehow, I don't know the way it all works, but I've seen where they have to
I
try to
don't know.
track down the one culprit toilet, but the other toilet will all of a sudden just explode.
Maybe a crocodile or an alligator got stuck in there.
Oh, God.
Maybe.
Yeah, don't get me started on snakes and toilets and my fear after Porky's too. I don't want to get into it.
It was a brown
It's
trout.
traumatizing. Shh. Traumatizing. All right. And we haven't been traumatized enough after the last 4 years. It's the last one. Really grinds my gears. Chinese lab crafts mutant COVID-19 strain with 100% kill rate in humanized mice. Surprisingly rapid death rate. Yeah. Yay, 2024. It's just great. In Wuhan-esque study, Chinese scientists are experimenting with a mutant COVID-19 strain that is 100% lethal to humanized mice. Yeah. Deadly virus known as GXP2V attacked the brains of the mice that were engineered to reflect genetic makeup similar to people, according to a study shared last week out of Beijing. The underscores a spillover risk of the GXP2V into humans and provides a unique model for understanding the pathogenic mechanisms of SARS-CoV-2 related to viruses, the author wrote. The deadly virus is mutated versions of blah, blah, blah. They go on. And then all the mice died. Yeah. Why are we doing this? Why are we still doing this? Don't give me, we have to get ahead of it. Bull crap. This wouldn't be jumping from a pangolin, that you say it is, into humanized, genetically engineered mice that you can, test this on. None of this would happen. None of this would happen if you just would stop.
To make it now spreadable to humans where it wasn't before, they're creating the problem.
If this got out of, if COVID got out of a lab, which I believe it did, censor me now, YouTube. And we're going to make something that's 100. I mean, we're going to make something that's 100% lethal and put it in human. What are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we funding this? And this is funded by NIH. NIH is still funding this stuff. And as you have Anthony Fauci testifying and says, I don't recall or I don't remember 157 times about everything that happened about 4 years ago. And here we are. When's it going to stop?
his memories are that bad, he doesn't need to be in charge of Jack.
Sounds nefarious to me.
Yeah, it sounds like bioengineered weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when we basically said, oh, we signed treaties, we're not going to do bioengineered weapons, how do we get to still make bioengineered weapons? That's what the military said.
Our
Secretly.
tax dollars at work.
Yep. Hey, you know what? NIH needs money. AIDS funding's drying up. Here we go. We're going to go build you those biological weapons. No, they're not biological weapons. It's research. It's research.
Yeah.
And here we are. I mean, seriously, when's this going to be enough? You know, I was talking about COVID before it was COVID. When I first saw the signs in China, we were covering it on the World Wide Web of Weird, that I thought things weren't looking very suspicious about what's going on here. And I'm just saying, little warning here. You know, people need to start getting a little pissed.
What is a humanized mouse, anyway?
A humanized mouse is the one that they put human genes in, so it's more similar to our genetics, so it can get sick with viruses that we could potentially get sick with.
No, it's supposed to make it now be able to be spreadable to where it was just animal to animal by putting in that human concept. Now it can also spread to humans. Before it would just have been contained within the animal.
Oh, but that's not gain of function somehow. But you know what? That's it. That's all for the World Wide Web. We pissed off YouTube enough with this last part.
Well, if they're humanizing mice, are they micing humans? You know, probably both ways.
Yeah, who knows with all the crap we're putting in our food, what's happening to our genetics. But there's a lot we got to get into tonight. More than that, we're going to get into aliens and all that good stuff. And with our guest tonight, Preston Dennett, UFO investigator, paranormal researcher. He's author of over 30 books, 100 articles. You've seen him on TV. I am honored to have you back on, Preston. Can't wait to talk to you after the short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping, haunted horror of Haverfordwest has been described as Terrifyingly real. A must-read. Shocking and chilling brilliance. Genuinely worrying. Utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS range read.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Preston Dennett. Preston began investigating UFOs in the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and co-workers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomenon. He's a field investigator for MUFON, a ghost hunter, paranormal researcher, and the author of more than 30 books and more than 100 articles about UFOs and the paranormal. Several of his books are on Amazon's UFO bestsellers. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON UFO Journal, Nexus, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Mystery Magazine, Ufologist, Phenomenon Magazine, Outer Limits magazines, and others. His writings have been translated into several different languages, including German, Portuguese, French, and Russian, and Icelandic. He has appeared on numerous radio and television programs. His research has been presented in the LA Times, LA Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and other newspapers. He's taught classes on various paranormal subjects and lectures across the United States. He currently resides in Reseda, California. It's an honor to have him back on the show. I've been dying to get him back on to get his perspective. Of course, I hear some of it because he's got a great YouTube channel. Just type in Preston Dennett. You'll find his YouTube channel. He's got so many different videos, so many different topics in this field that you got to check out. This guy is a prolific researcher. There's a lot we can talk to him about, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Like I said, Preston, it's an honor to have you back on the show. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, it's an honor and a pleasure myself. Thank you.
Like I said, I've been dying to talk to you because there's been a lot in the UFO world that seems to be happening. I think it's been a couple years since we had you on, and that's just the rumblings of the UFO disclosure starting then. I don't know how closely you're tracking it or watching what's been going on, but I find some things very interesting, too. Like I said, I watch your YouTube channel, and one of the things I'd like to get into is a video you had last week. I've seen making a lot of traction with people, because of what's been going on, is your what is it, extraordinary humanoids. You go through 10 humanoid encounters of aliens, but found that video interesting because we had the Las Vegas UFO, aliens in the backyard.
Right.
Peru, month-long attacks on a Peru village of men or creatures. Some say 7, 8 feet tall, 10 feet tall, on hover pads, trying to abduct people, children, teenagers. There's a guy, Tim Albrino's gone down there. It's really interesting. I don't know if you've seen the interviews with him, but he's gone down to Peru and talked to these people. It's really interesting. It sounds like it could be some kind of Black Ops project even. Maybe not alien. I don't know. And they try to write it off as gold miners trying to scare the villagers away. And then, of course, you have what I don't believe happened, but I find it interesting, is the Miami Mall alien thing. How quickly that blew up on the internet. Honestly, I don't know what your take is on that. My opinion on the Miami thing is nothing happened.
Yeah, I've been certainly following it. I'm skeptical, honestly, because I see it blowing up out of proportion. It's a lot of different conflicting stories, a lot of honest to God CGI of imaging out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that the large police response doesn't faze me at all. That's normal.
Yeah.
Especially at a mall, an institution like that.
Yeah, I mean, when there were fireworks going off, you don't know if they're gunshots. If one word was issued about gunshots, you're going to get that at a public place.
Yeah, I'm skeptical that 8-foot tall ETs are going to be rolling around in the mall.
Yeah. What's your thought on the Las Vegas one?
The one from last year, that was kind of interesting. I'm again skeptical because I was really waiting for a researcher to go in there and just take it by the horns and get the story out there. I did watch the interview by the teenage witness, who seems very sincere, I have to say. But the video of the light going through the sky looks very meteoritic.
Yeah, that totally looks like a meteor. There's video footage. See, I followed it. What was the guy's name? It was the Las Vegas guy, former police officer, was the one that got to really first interview this kid and went to the property. I can't think of his name, but he's totally written it off now. He's like, he doesn't do this paranormal stuff. And he's just like, well, the kid's story's gotten shaky and it's changed. And why didn't he share the full video with me? Because he only shared like one clip with him. It's like, you can see the alien there. But he had the longer video clip they released like on TikTok where you can really see the aliens in it. It's from their original video, but he didn't share that with the investigator, and so he was written off the kid.
No,
I don't know. I mean, they're all still sticking to their story.
Yeah, the timing was weird too, that it comes along right with the whole disclosure movement.
Yeah. And then what's going on in Peru? I don't know if have you heard anything, read anything about what's been going on in Peru? Happened started like last July of 2023.
I've been following that too. I'm leaning, I haven't researched the incident personally. I only know it's in the public arena. I'm leaning towards the MyLab Black Op explanation, honestly, because it's so negative and that fits the pattern.
Not only that, because I know you're very much, since the last time I talked to you, you're very much on the side of more aliens are more of a positive thing, that they, we try to reflect them in these negative lights, that you believe that there are more positive presence here than nefarious. We can get into that.
I don't think they're trying to take over.
Right.
I really don't.
And something like this in Peru, they're taking, like with this one girl, Talia, they grabbed her. And this is why I think it's Black Ops, because Tim Albrino went and interviewed this girl, and she said that they were speaking Spanish, but one she called a gringo. Not because she could see his face, because they're wearing this armor. Okay? Like an exoskeleton, maybe. But she said she called the one guy gringo because he spoke broken Spanish, like a gringo would, while the other guy spoke it perfectly. And they're putting this stuff on her face, and they're saying, hold on, you can't do that or it won't peel right. Because they have this legend of this, remember the skin peelers, the face peelers. So it's like they're almost trying to play into the legend. This is what I think the military heard this in the interview with the girl. They're like, oh, these are gold miners trying to scare you off. Yeah, with hover packs, man. Like
that doesn't
hover pads
sound
look like the Green Goblin. I don't think gold miners are going to that length, but why would our military go to this length either? Or I wouldn't even say our military. I really hate saying that because I really think it's
the cabal
contractors, the military contractors. Because this Tim Albrino went down there, and really great journalism he's doing down there, because he found out it's in multiple villages. There's another boy who was attacked so bad that they cut him so bad they had to get him to an emergency medical facility because they didn't have anything locally because he almost died. So why are they doing this? But she could hear him talk about putting this paste on to numb her skin so they could cut her face off. And she ended up struggling getting away, like fell to the ground because they were like hovering in the air as they're doing this.
That doesn't sound like any ET encounter I've ever heard of. Honestly.
Right.
I mean,
There's some weird footage that they have them shooting in the jungle, and you can almost see like a greenish like entity in the jungle, like leg and arms, but it's so blurry it's really hard to tell. Obviously, these people have been scared. Obviously, something's happened enough that got the military and the police there to investigate and write it off as this explanation that it's these gold miners trying to scare them off. But it doesn't sound like aliens to me either.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of buzz in the community about a false flag operation coming up,
like Project Bluebeam kind of deal.
Right, alien attack, which is really not ET at all. So this could be a preliminary, practice operation along those lines.
That's what I'm saying.
Purely speculating.
But me too. I mean, we are just
when Vegas happened.
See, we're there's some really the Vegas scene. What's really interesting to me about the Vegas scene is not the actual incident, which is interesting as hell, but the response afterwards, the way the police treated it and had lack of knowledge about the cameras on the property because, they were ordered by state police, but they were ordered through who put them there? Homeland Security. Homeland Security put the cameras around those people's property after the incident. Why would Homeland Security do that? And then they have these interesting trailers in their backyard, whoever they're renting from. They have these off sites and black ops sites and places where they store stuff, and they use people. I don't know. There could have been something weird going on there. I don't know.
Well, if you look into Nevada, it's 87% military owned.
Well, here's another interesting story. Jon Stewart, not the comedian, but a former politician, whatever. I don't know if you would call him a journalist. Has got some military whistleblowers, and he has this one whistleblower tell him in 2004 in Nevada, a Lockheed Martin reverse-engineered alien craft crashed, and they sent their own mercenary recovery team to get it back. But JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, didn't know Lockheed Martin had a reverse-engineered alien craft or were flying it in their area and around America. Sent their own recovery team, and they got into a firefight. And 2 JSOC military soldiers died. And some say this is what Gersh is referring to when they asked him, do you know if anybody has died because of this, technology or whatever? And this is what he's referring to, is this 2004 incident.
Well, that would make sense because I don't think ETs are trying to kill people. I think it's the opposite, actually. But
right. I mean, I've had Nick Redfern on here, and he's talked about psyops that they run where they even had a guy in I think it was the 60s, they gave him LSD and hired a hooker dressed as an alien to sleep with him. They drugged him from air. It was all a test to see if they could test an aerosol LSD.
Oh yeah,
I
know they've done horrible things to our citizens. I mean, just terrible. Mind control and drugs and poisoning them with all different kinds of drugs and diseases. It's not okay.
No, but this is what I'm saying. If you have a firefight between a military contractor and the U.S. military.
Well, the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing.
Right, and I think this is why we're getting this disclosure because, look, David Gersh is sitting there testifying, and he, for a long time said he had no firsthand knowledge, and then comes out and says, I've been allowed to tell you I've had firsthand knowledge on some level. I've been allowed, and that's not a criticism on David Gersh. It just means that he's still taking orders. He's still active, and that he has to follow orders, but there's somebody allowing him to speak, and this could be a pushback within the Pentagon against all these military contractors with reverse engineered alien aircraft and stuff that they're flying around and doing God knows what with their private militaries.
Yeah, well, we know disclosure is very much a controlled process. We can see it. It's very tightly controlled. his testimony was pretty interesting. I mean, it's unprecedented, a lot of the stuff he's saying in terms
Right.
of it being before Congress. That's amazing. And he does seem to have an unimpeachable resume, but it does also feel very rehearsed, propaganda-ish, controlled.
Right. Controlled. Like I said, it's definitely controlled. Nothing's going to be released without this kind of level of control. Look how they react when Jeremy Corbell gets that information. Well, we don't respond to leaked information. Only we respond to the stuff we leak. You know?
Right.
That's what I'm seeing. You know, but it just seems like there are, you know, there sounds like there's people that, you know, when you hear David Gersh speak, there's people that are frustrated that have known about this, that want this information out. But I think part of that is because they've lost control, that this is in the hands of military contractors. And you hear so much from Tim Burchett, Representative Tim Burchett, after he came out of the SCIF. You know, he said he can't talk about a lot of things because it is classified, but that this is basically something that's gotten way out of control because it's in the hands of all these military contractors, like Lockheed, with their private little military. They're getting, you know, a firefight with their military, or
Exactly.
Raytheon, or, you know, I mean, this
I think
is,
that's
you know,
the driving force behind why we're seeing any disclosure at all, because they are losing control of the narrative. The last thing they want.
imagine their fears of like, well, if Lockheed has this technology and they didn't tell us about it, well, who else are they selling it to if they're not selling it to us?
Exactly. It's an interesting development in this field because there's been no movement in official circles for decades. And now it's really spilling over in a big way, which I find super interesting. To me, the best thing about it is it's bringing a lot more people into the field. It's lending some legitimacy to this subject in a way we've never had before. But is it disclosure? Not even close.
No.
It's just not.
Disclosure comes from us being able to feel more comfortable and free to talk about our experiences, and this does help that. I agree. I think that's the biggest part of it. The biggest thing that it does is get people to feel more comfortable to talk about their experiences.
People talking, a lot of people talking about it and making it more normal.
Yeah, and it's awfully nice to hear senators and representatives talking about this in a serious way, without giggling and joking and being all skeptical, saying there is a cover-up. I mean, that actually surprised me during those hearings, for them to say some of us have seen UFOs, and we want truth and transparency. I said some of us have seen it, but I'm not naming names. I thought, well, wait a second. Do you want transparency or don't you?
Right.
If you're seeing a UFO, tell us. What's the big deal? What did you see? That would be a good step right there. And I also noticed the senators talked more than the actual witnesses did, which.
Well, they got to get their TV time, buddy. They got to get their TV time.
Yeah.
They're not doing it for nothing. They're not doing it for free.
That was irritating, but I did like hearing them say, you know, the Pentagon's not cooperating with us. We want those pilot reports, and they're not giving them to us. Like, well, all right. Here's a little push-pull.
It's like you start seeing the house of cards kind of coming down a little bit, or a fracture.
I feel like sooner or later the whole cover-up's just going to collapse under the weight of its own lies.
Mm-hmm.
I always reference Art Bell on this one because when they would talk about disclosure back in the 90s when I'd be listening to Art Bell, he said several times, he made the analogies like if they let one thing out or a few things out, then it's like a snowball because then it just rolls down the hill and gathers more steam because you got more people now that are going to come out and more questions about what you just revealed and more questions about the next thing. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until it's out of control and the whole thing comes apart.
Yeah. Well, the cover-up's not new. It's been going on for 80 years or so. And I think now there's a lot of people who are nearing the end of their lives who are, you know what? I am going to do my part. And I think pretty much every major researcher out there has talked to at least a couple of whistleblowers.
Yeah.
So.
Those are the ones I listen to the most too, like the people that are pretty much on their deathbeds that are then giving this information because they have no other reason in the world to do that.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot more than just the, how many have we heard? 10, 20, 30? I know that there's hundreds of them.
So, yeah.
Thousands,
probably. I mean, you just look at even some of the astronauts after they've finally, left NASA, left the military and all that, like Edgar Mitchell and Gordon Cooper and them, and how much they were tried to be as open as I think they possibly could be about their experiences and belief in UFOs visiting this planet. You know, it
Exactly.
wasn't going to help their reputation or get them any fans, you know, except from the UFO community by making those statements. But they were very much involved in the UFO community, especially Edgar Mitchell. You know, these guys went to space. You know, they've seen stuff. I think they've seen a lot of stuff they're not going to ever disclose.
Well, the cat's out of the bag. They've said UFOs are real. They're not quite saying they're extraterrestrial, but you know, now you can't really backpedal that. So
I know.
That would be interesting to see where this goes.
Eat that,
next.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
But NASA to say, you know, we're starting to study these now. Oh, really starting? Okay.
Starting. You're a little behind, like you are about getting back to the moon.
And they were like, well, we don't have enough evidence to really determine what this is.
That's the most frustrating part about all this is the
Or keep
statements by
sending money and we'll keep looking.
right. That was that we covered that on the World Wide Web. That exactly was my statement. Thank you, Jamie. Is that their basic statement is like, but if you give us more money, you know, we'll look into it further. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. But that's the thing. It's so frustrating to hear them talk about it, or the Pentagon, or the media, because it's me, you, Jamie, everybody that's, you know, in the audience. You know, we it's like, welcome to the party, pal. You know, we've been here, we've heard these stories, we know, and they won't even touch human alien encounters at all. It's all about the flying craft right now. They won't talk about alien abductions or humanoid encounters. And I do have to admit, like, I watched that video recently you did last week of humanoid encounters, and all the different aliens and all the different entities, the different experiences people have, it's makes my imagination go crazy about what is the phenomenon happening here. I mean, because there are plenty of people that have the whole typical gray encounter, but there's like all these different kinds of creatures. In fact, last week we had Paul Blake Smith on, and we were talking about his book, The Nixon Gleason Encounter. And in that, you know, according to the, you know, that legend of Nixon showing Gleason the alien bodies, those alien bodies were only 2 feet, 2.5 feet, to you know, maybe 3 at the max. Well, I think 2.5 was what he said, with pointy ears. Not your, you know, the typical description, but that's the one his wife said he said, his ex-wife. You know, and I remember one of the stories you had of humanoid encounters, it was the one in Japan.
Right.
Yeah, they had like the pointy ears. Now they were, you said, I think the boys described them as 4 feet tall, but I mean, we get these different, I mean, we have the general, like I said, the grays that we, you know, everybody is familiar with, but there seems to be a whole plethora of other creatures or beings out there.
Yeah, it's super interesting. There was a study by, or I forget who did it, but George Fawcett, a prominent researcher, referenced it years ago. I think it's 60 or 70% of them are 4 feet or under, often really short. Certainly not all of them. But what I do find most interesting, to me certainly, is that they're all humanoid. We're basically dealing with...
They're not a jellyfish.
No. Well, there are a few scattered reports of stuff that might not be what we would call humanoids.
Right.
They're statistically insignificant compared to the, you know, we've got a database close to 1 million of encounters at this point. I mean,
right.
Seriously. So, and yeah, you're right. The variety is amazing to me, because people do talk about grays. They get a lot of publicity. But even among grays, we have short little guys from 3 feet tall, upwards to, you know, 6, 7 feet, or even taller. And it's not just gray, of course. It's white and pink and green and blue and yellow. But it's the praying mantis. That's so interesting to me. Because why praying mantis? Why not ladybug? You know.
Yeah.
Why not, you know, potato bug or something?
But that's one that's reported a lot.
Yeah. Well, certainly more than any other insect, I guess.
Yeah.
But human looking, I find that fascinating. Some look just like us. But little blue beings, I've got quite a few cases of those personally, which aren't grays, or certainly not the grays we're talking about.
They're different.
Yeah, they're flatter faces, tiny little eyes, blue skin, wrinkled, wearing robes usually. Well, tall whites, I mean...
There's something about that something that gets me every time. Like, I remember the first time I saw an adaptation of that, it was in Whitley, the Contact. Or not Contact. Communion. Thank you. I said Contact. That's another great book. But Communion by Whitley Strieber. When they show it, something freaked me out about that little hooded blue dude.
Yeah,
You
that's
see
a
in it.
pretty good representation, actually, because my sister-in-law had an encounter with these guys, and she's an artist.
Really?
Yeah, she drew them, and I put it up, on one of my YouTube videos, and I was contacted by a gentleman from Texas. Actually, Ron Johnson is his name. He's like, I saw that picture. I did a backflip when I saw that because that is exactly what me and my brother saw for years growing up in East Palo, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, these little blue guys would come in wearing the robes. There were grays as well. I think probably what we call a praying mantis. But
It seems to be like praying mantises are like the boss. Like they're like the doctor in the room, and like these little blue hooded guys and the little grays are like assistants.
they're working together, no doubt about
Yeah.
that. Because we do see them together all the time. So I find that fascinating. But yeah, the little blue dudes are pretty interesting because I do get those pretty regularly. It's not a whole lot. Grays are still the most common that I get. But these guys turn up. And there was a really interesting aspect to this guy Ron Johnson's encounter.
Yeah.
Because they would wake up, in each other's beds sometimes, and
Oh wow.
but they would wake up all wrapped up in their quilt or their bed sheets, wrapped up like a burrito, with their arms
Yeah.
to their sides. They couldn't move. And their parents would come in like, "How did you do this?" I'm like, "We didn't do it. I kept telling you, it's the blue men. They're coming in." Their parents were
So
very
they were
religious.
just kids when this was happening to them.
Yeah, but it went on for since age 5 to like 14 years.
Wow.
But when he told me that, I had to laugh because I have other cases like that where they will wrap you up in a quilt or something. And when I put that, I put it in my book. And one of the other guys in the book called me up afterwards because he got the book, of course. And he says, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you that, but that exact thing happened to me. He didn't tell me because he thought it was just too strange. And wasn't
Right,
sure
but
if
you
it
don't
was
get these
authentic.
details until people share their stories, and somebody else has had the same experience shares it. That's what's so important about your work
I
and
have
doing this.
a question, in fact, about that. When you mentioned the robes, it just made me think of something that I used to experience when I was like 4 or 5. I called them the Watchers. The shadows
Yeah.
on the walls that my parents would, they couldn't see them, but they would see me talk to them and kiss them goodnight. But they were kind of like this kind of image where it was almost like a cape type shape, almost like a vampire cape type shape, though.
Yeah.
And it was just always 3 that would be on the wall, like watching me during the day. And they would ask, what I was looking at. And the closest I could say was like Mork from Ork, because this was the 70s and I didn't really have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
But because my sisters had some experiences too that we don't talk about because she's so scared by it, I've never seen anybody show that same type of shape before.
Yeah, I can't say, just judging from your drawing that I've seen that exactly either, but that doesn't surprise me. 'Cause all the time I hear people tell me descriptions that I've never heard before. It's a one-off.
Because it was like they were wearing robes or capes of some sort, but it felt extraterrestrial.
I mean, one lady, she contacted me because she's like, I just need to tell you what I saw.
Yeah.
So you can tell me if you've ever heard of anything like this. And she described this 9-foot tall humanoid with a huge chin, large eyes, a very tall forehead, and orange straw-like hair sticking straight up. I haven't heard of anything like that.
No.
So I've got quite a few cases of people who've seen 9-foot tall beings with varying descriptions.
That's the craze right now. 7 to 10 foot tall alien humanoid beings is the internet craze right now. I told with the Miami thing, I was like, I wonder if some psyop happened where they're like, here, let's put a meme out and then about this incident at Miami Mall, and let's watch the internet eat itself with this story. Is that try to like mentally prepare us for the idea of 10-foot tall aliens? I don't know.
Well, they can get taller than that. The record I've ever heard is actually I've got 2 cases of 15-foot tall praying mantis ETs. And I have to tell you, the witnesses are very credible. One guy's a Navy medic, and he's a trained observer. You know, we depend on him to save our lives.
Yeah.
He walked right up to had an onboard encounter and had 3 of these guys around him, and one walked right up to him and was more than twice his height. He's over 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And he had to look up at it. He says one of its eyeballs was as big as a basketball, and scared the living daylights out of him, even though it was really a benevolent encounter overall. He didn't really like it because it scared him so bad. But
You have to be a pretty big ship for a big alien like that, too. You know, be
Yeah.
15 feet tall.
Well, you know-
I get the idea of small little aliens, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, if you live in, you know, especially if an alien species is living in space, maybe in a lot more zero G in zero G, it would actually elongate the body, you would think. But maybe just being, evolving in space, having smaller frames or statures, do you think you hear more stories, though, about them being shorter and smaller?
Absolutely. I mean, I heard recently there was a guy from England. It's a very famous case, Alfred Berthoud, taken on board at age 71 or so. Went on board the craft. The craft itself was only about 4 feet to 5 feet high in the room. He had to bend over. He could not stand up straight in it.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what our guy from Brazil said. But it was 4 feet tall. He basically had to walk around on his knees inside the craft because the rooms were just not that tall. That I've only heard a couple of times.
I found your 10 humanoid alien video. What I found interesting in some of those stories, it seems like these are aliens doing like quick soil sample grabs. There's several of them where it seems like they're doing quick soil sample grabs, like they're busting through some legal hurry up, we got to get this human dirt, we got to get this earth dirt and get out of here before
I
Space
thought that
Force
about
gets us or something.
minerals before, like certain minerals maybe they use in their crafts or metals.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot going on there. That wouldn't surprise me at all that they're collecting soil samples because we do see that in so many cases all over the world.
Yeah.
And plant samples. They're picking flowers or stripping people's house plants even. I've got a case of a lady whose philodendron, her split leaf philodendron plant, was basically stripped of its leaves over a period of 3 days by little grays who, for some reason, wanted the leaves of that plant.
Really?
For collecting animals, a farmer will come out and they're taking his rabbits. He lifted a gun to shoot at them, and they made his gun so heavy he couldn't hold it and paralyzed him, and off they went with his rabbits. But they're collecting all these different things. And on one hand, I think sometimes this is a little bit of a display to just sort of introduce people to the fact that they're here. Because they do that. I mean, they will show themselves in a very intentional way.
Like Greys, they seem to be permanently based here. There's so many of those encounters, but all these little, like these stories you tell, these people's encounters with these all different kinds of creatures here. All of them looking drastically different from the other.
Yeah, I heard recently of one case in Romania involving, it was Romania, 2 police officers who came upon a UFO, which hasn't quite landed, but it's right above the road there.
Yeah.
And these little guys who were fat. They had big bulging stomachs. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you've heard, the large eyes. That's very, very common. Usually thin bodies, long arms.
I mean, if you go back to even like the original witness descriptions of the bodies at Roswell, it wasn't Greys. No. If you go back to the original description, they were cherub-like, like children with big eyes. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say they had black eyes or anything like that. Just that they had childlike features. We have, of course, the description of the Greys, which vary. Even the descriptions of the Greys can vary. Like they're, by height and color and, features somewhat sometimes.
Skin texture.
I always... There's some stuff that came out of those congressional hearings where they mention interdimensional. And one of your humanoid stories, I think you said the kind of guy is alluding to that he was told, or by one of these beings, that they were interdimensional.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting and important point because that's gaining a lot of traction among UFO researchers, certainly, that perhaps these aren't ETs as we think of them.
Right.
And I think if you look at the totality of evidence, the ET theory still fits best. I think it's the best explanation.
But
And-
it could be both.
Yeah, well, exactly. One doesn't preclude the other.
Right.
Look at us. We're interdimensional. I mean, we really are.
Right.
There is life after death. I think the evidence for that is
Yeah.
very persuasive.
Like I was talking about Suzanne Summers, you know?
Right. We can go out of our body. There are people on this planet who've levitated, who perform, teleportation, or all
Yeah.
kinds of things that we would think of as interdimensional. All entities have interdimensional aspects. So I'm not sure how useful it is to say, oh, they're interdimensional beings. Well, yeah.
I look at the possibility when you talk about interdimensionals of the ideas of multiverse and parallel realities and stuff. That some of these things are from other planets, but some of these things could be from alternate versions of this planet.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to that. I interviewed one guy who swore up and down he saw an elf-like being, and he described
Pointy ears,
big eyes, but a button nose, a bald head, a wrinkled face, but wore a little brown jacket, trousers, leather boots, but did walk through the wall and walked back out through the wall. Visited him 6 times. Once 2 came, talked with him. They would move objects around. He never actually touched them. But he swears up and down these were not ETs.
Yeah.
I really dug deep on that to see if maybe he had a screen memory, as we call them.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. And after hearing his account, I did more research because I kind of shied away from the whole fairy lore a little bit. I've looked into it. The work of Jacques Vallée touches that quite
Right,
a lot.
because it's very similar to alien abduction stories in a sense.
They're genuine, 100%. Because I put that out on a YouTube video and I got about 20 responses from people who are like, I'm so glad you put that out because I had that experience.
Really?
Yeah. In modern day, this is not stuff from the 40s, 50s, or even 1800s.
I've had guests on here talking about fairy encounters before. I'm trying to remember which one, but it's something that is still happens to this day. Is people having these kind of encounters?
Yeah, one guy had this little elf-like being in his room. He woke up and it was holding up his Matchbox car and looking at it and kind of playing with it.
Wow!
And he sat up in bed and looked at it. It saw him, ran right through the wall, but the Matchbox car didn't make it. Hit the wall and spun on the floor.
Wow!
Which was the kind of little detail that you're like,
Yeah.
That's super interesting to me.
It's always, I've had, this is why it's always been interesting to me. I've always been fascinated by the idea of the multiverse and interdimensional and all that because of my experiences since my childhood. I saw a green floating head with my cousin, and then I had a lot of other weird stuff, but I had my shadow person experience for about 4 months. This thing terrorized me, and then a lot of people go, it's demon. And I'm like, I don't classify it as that. And actually followed actual experience camping I had with maybe an alien encounter I had not more than maybe 4 or 5 months after it. And I've been trying to piece that together. How many years, 20 years later, what happened to me during those 4 or 5 months? I was being tortured by this thing or what it was. But it makes me believe that there's other layers and dimensions we don't understand. They can physically enter this world.
We know that from mathematics and quantum physics. There are other dimensions. And I think a lot of stuff gets put under the UFO umbrella that doesn't belong there. There are spirits.
True.
There are elf-like beings who are, look at Bigfoot. This is a primate, apparently, which is leaving footprints and hair samples and stinks to high heaven, but disappears. And, what's going on there? It clearly has some interdimensional capabilities.
Yeah, there's people that have said they've seen it just right out in front of them, flash a light, and it's gone. Yeah. There's been UFO sightings coordinated with Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah, so something's going on that we don't fully understand. And I think it's a mistake to try to label this all as one thing, because I don't think it is one thing. And I see
but I think there's a lot of things, a lot of connecting aspects of something we don't understand yet.
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of connects them all. Like a fundamental aspect of reality we're just not getting or grasping yet. Why we're having these encounters where people are, seeing a definite variety of different beings. And I don't think it's because people are just making up stuff. I think it's because people are seeing a variety of different beings. It's not just one alien presence. It's not one kind of alien either. It's not one kind of premise, like they came from Zeta Reticuli. No, they could have came from an alternate version of Earth, or came from an alternate version of Zeta Reticuli.
Look at the variation we have on our own planet with little
Right.
pygmies who are 3 to 4 feet tall, and the Watusis who are 8 to 9 feet tall, and every shade and height and color and shape in between, with eyes shaped, nose shape, everything. The variation on Earth is so great that you could probably stick a few grays and little blue beings in there on the lineup, and they'd fit right in, honestly.
Yeah. I also love that, that when you talk about 10 foot, 11 foot tall, 15 foot tall aliens, is the Anunnaki, Zachary Stitchin stories of ancient alien gods or giants. I believe they've been here we've been visited by many different alien species over all of humankind. And I think there's plenty that are just coming in for a tour and then leave, and that's the last time we see them. You heard stories of reports where they tell people, like, a lot of times, like, we need to protect this Earth or save this Earth or how precious this Earth is. You wonder how many are coming here because there's not that many planets left anymore with life like we have. But we do have something precious.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I buy into that, because if you talk to the contactees, they're told that there's plenty of life out there. I mean, one lady I talked to, who I think she's from the East Coast, I know, she asked the Greys flat out, "Are you coming here to take over our planet?" And they said, "No, your planet is far too crowded, polluted. You're very hard to be around. There's plenty of planets out there for us. We do not need your planet. That's not our purpose."
It doesn't sound like they could survive on our planet either, from descriptions of incidents of crashes and testimonies that they're even there. When people are in their environment, they come back from it a little bit sick, maybe. Because they're in a different kind of alien environment.
Right. That does come up. Certainly.
Yeah.
But I do think the vast majority are ETs, as we would think of them. And one reason I feel like that is because, again, the totality of the evidence. But let's talk about crash retrievals. If they really do have the craft and the bodies, well, we know what they are. There they are. All we need to do is get them in the public arena. And if this is being reverse engineered as well, it is a technology. It's not an interdimensional thing that's manifesting to guide our belief systems or whatever. There's something solid to this.
I think interdimensional could be solid. I think something could come from another universe that could be totally solid to have a vehicle. They're just slipping time streams or slipping realities. That they're physically here. But a lot of it, I do think, are aliens. They have them, we have the, Betty and Barney Hill telling them they're from Zeta Reticuli. You have plenty of testimonies from people where they tell them where they come from. And then look at all the ancient alien stuff. We're basically getting star maps telling them where these ancient aliens came from.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that Orion comes up quite a bit.
Right.
An interview with the lady Dolly Saffron, wrote a whole book on her because she's a fully conscious contactee, and they took her to their planet, which is in the Orion system. And that came up in a few other cases of people I interviewed personally, and certainly it's in the literature.
What kind of aliens were those? The ones from Orion? What did they look like?
They're grays, your typical grays.
They're grays.
Yep, tall grays for the most part, but short little AI grays, which they use,
the AI grays.
Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, they weren't emotional," well, yeah, there's some of these little AIs which are not alive as we would think of them.
Right. I mean, if you were to build an android for us, you make it look somewhat like us. They're making robots right now that look more and more, can move more and more like us, and eventually they're going to put the Terminator skin on them or whatever. Say we're going to look like us.
Yeah, this is what they're showing us, so that it's probably far more advanced than that's in the public arena.
Right. So if they're advanced, they're going to have little synthetic robotic AI, maybe they're cybernetically synthetic, biological, who knows what they are, but they're made as little helpers. That's why they're also smaller.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot going on that we're just beginning to understand.
Yeah, sadly. And like I said, the scary part to me is what is been done behind our backs and interactions with these different alien beings. There's a classic Eisenhower supposedly met with aliens. There maybe had a couple meetings with them. Other bad presidents, let's say, other presidents have had maybe meetings with them. We were talking about Nixon possibly. I don't think presidents are having meetings with them anymore. Thank God. But then again, who is?
I think the ETs kind of gave up on that and started doing what amounts to a grassroots movement, which is why
don't ask to see our leaders. don't ask to see our leaders. Please,
they gave
dear
it a
God.
good try, and
Yeah.
our leaders did not cooperate. They were not being truthful or transparent, and that's why I think we do have big waves of sightings. Why ETs put on what we call display, showing themselves on purpose. Why they're taking people on board and showing them the engine room, teaching them about free energy, or all
Right.
the things that they're, the constant warnings against nuclear proliferation. It's the number one message, pretty much, if you get to talk to an ET.
While we're still using fossil fuels, and there's like a trail of supposed suicides for anybody related to 0 point energy. Anybody associated with 0 point energy research has had some untimely demises.
Yeah, our secret government is who I blame. The military-industrial complex.
Yep.
The oil industry, the energy industry. They know who they are. We know who they are.
And they are also heavily involved with these private military contractors that we probably gave alien technology to. They reverse engineered it, said thanks for that, and screw off military. Now we got it, and we'll sell it to whoever.
Exactly. And these are the people I'm afraid of, not the ETs.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
we've got a
that's what I'm
very good
saying.
handle on the ET agenda. People are taken on board, and being examined is often no fun for people. And some people think, well, this is evil, this is bad, I hate this. And I get it. It's not fun if you're suddenly pulled out of your bedroom and find yourself in a place you've never been before, surrounded by beings that look quite a bit different. But I tell you, this is often when people get healed. That's one of my books, 300 plus cases.
Yeah.
That's one of the agendas,
Did I tell
for sure.
Started to discover are they dreams or what are these experiences I had out throughout my life? But I had one where I was so sick. Like I used to smoke 4 packs a day. I was horrible, and I had bronchitis. I was so stuffed up. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was wheezing. And I remember going to sleep and having this very vivid dream of being taken aboard a ship, floated through my window, and then putting this thing down my throat. To make the story shorter, basically, I'm like struggling, and something's trying to be put down my throat, and they're telling me telepathically, I'm not hearing it. It's all right. Don't be scared. This is going to help you, and chiding me for smoking. And then they put this foam down into my lungs, and then like sucked it back out. And they're like visually showing me what they're doing. Like this thing's trying to calm me. All I can see is something tall and a hand on my shoulder, and that's all I can really remember. And a bright light in my eye as they're shoving this down my throat. That I woke up, and I swear I was a billion times better. Like all the chest congestion was gone. I was like almost 100%, which is usually that does not happen, especially when I was really not taking care of myself. But I wrote it off as a dream. Like I did a lot of weird stuff like that at the time. It took my friend Terry Lovelace's book, Incident at Devil's Den, to make me really start reevaluating these experiences.
Yeah, well, that sounds very typical of a UFO healing. Jim Sparks, who wrote a book, I forget what it's called, but he's a contactee, had the ETs visit him, and they handed him this clear box of black goo. And they said, "This is our gift to you." And he says, "Well, what is this? It stinks." They said, "Well, we pulled this out of your lungs. You need to stop smoking."
So you had the same thing, and you got chided for it. I'm not alone.
Yeah, and I have another case exactly like that. The only difference is the shape of the container. Again, given the gift, this is for you. It stunk. It was black goo.
So they pulled it out of their lungs. That's what happened to me. I don't remember being showed a black goo, except that they were showing it to me telepathically what they were doing. Like they were showing me as I was trying to get me to calm down as this was like all happening.
They healed one lady of total kidney failure, took her on board after, showed her kidneys, and said, look, your kidneys are doing fine, but here's your liver. Do you see all these black spots? And she says, yeah, I see them. They said, you need to stop drinking so much Diet Coke. It's
Oh,
hurting
yeah.
your liver."
Tell aliens, tell it. Preach it, aliens. Preach it. I hate Diet Pop. But that's the thing. Like, there's another industry that's totally threatened. The medical industry doesn't want that to come out because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the only way it makes money is you're sick. And we got the highest chronic disease in the world in this country, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah,
so they don't need aliens coming around giving us cures to stuff.
More people are dying of legal drugs than illegal.
Yeah.
Both are a real problem. And definitely, this is one of the reasons behind the UFO cover-up. Because if you talk to the UFO crash retrieval whistleblowers, there's healing technology on board these craft, some of which is being pulled out and used. And can you imagine if we had tools that would heal up wounds instantly or diagnose
remove
tumors
cancer
and heart attacks and fix things?
Yeah, remove cancer. Look, think how much of a multi-billion-dollar industry, cancer is.
Boy, the
you have
commercials on
aliens show.
TV advertising these drugs with all these side effects.
You remember when the aliens show up and they're like giving them all the cures and all that stuff? Like the reality, if that happened, everything would crash. Economy would crash because all these rich bastards have been milking us dry. Would be out of jobs because they've been milking us dry off of technologies they've been hidden, especially energy. I mean, that's the biggest one.
Yeah. Yep, which I think why so many people are taken into the engine room and shown exactly how these craft fly.
Like, why are you people using this crap? Fossil fuels.
Yeah, I talked to an electronics engineer, Jim Kubelbeck, who had that exact experience. They showed it to him because they thought maybe he could understand it, and he said it was a little bit beyond him, but it's the same message so many people get. Again, against nuclear power and fossil fuels and pollution and war and aggression and greed. But certainly they're trying to educate people.
I mean, think how many, they talk about all the UFO sightings around nuclear installations. Well, it's also nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants have a ton. Yeah, anything nuclear. They obviously have, a worry about it. I've always wondered some of the stuff that was going on with the Navy and the UFO sightings, like the Tic Tac and all that stuff happening out there during their naval operations and all that, is that these ships have some nuclear capabilities upon them. Have a nuclear engine or that, and maybe they're floating right above a hidden underwater alien base, and now you just stirred the hornet's nest.
Yeah, one of the favorite interviews I ever did was with Ray Sachs, is his name. He was an engineer on the Clamagore, which was a sub which carried nuclear-tipped torpedoes. Back in 1971, this wasn't known, but he's heading up the East Coast at night. He's on deck as a watch officer with the commander, second in command, and another petty officer, when a USO, an unidentified submersible object, shows up and paces the sub for 15 minutes right alongside it. So clearly not another sub, because you don't get close when you're at sea to any other vehicle.
No.
Yeah, all the other major officers came up on deck and watched it. Finally, it darts off. It came in at 100 knots, darted off at about 80 knots. And the second in command turns to the commander and says, "Sir, how would you like me to report this in the log?" The commander says, "Officers who report this kind of incident do not move up in rank." So it was never reported. And I told the story before. There was another submariner who called in and said, "Yes, we've had that experience. That's exactly what happens. We don't hear 99% what's going on with the Navy and the, quote, USOs."
I still don't think we're going to hear anything, even though they supposedly have this reporting program, even for civilian pilots now. I feel like it's going to come down like, yeah, you want to report that still, buddy? You sure you want to do that? They're going to hear from some commanding officer.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear some of these pilots saying that this is not a rare event. This is more of a daily thing. So,
yeah. Well, my dad was telling me, I mean, I can imagine what they were, he didn't have, when he served in the Navy, didn't have any UFO things, but he was telling me back in the day, those ships were carrying nuclear capabilities so they could blow up jets in the sky. They don't have that kind of, they're not carrying that kind of weaponry now. But back then, you imagine the aliens, if they're a bit threatened or worried about what we're doing with nuclear weapons and power. Here we are, had ships out there in the seas in the 70s that could literally detonate nukes up in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it is a huge concern among the ETs, and many contactees have been told why. It's because it's not just us killing ourselves and our planet. When we explode a nuclear weapon, it is reverberating into other dimensional space.
Yeah, see, there's the interdimensional thing. Yeah, some people think that's why they start showing up, or people start seeing them after the launch of Hiroshima and Fukushima, or it was Fukushima. That's the nuclear power plant. Sorry, but even with the nuclear power plant in Fukushima, as of recently, that there's alien UFO sightings there, just like there were in Chernobyl.
Yeah, I traced one to over 3 Mile Island because I hadn't heard anything about that. But the guy said he saw a UFO right after that accident, right over the power plant.
And some theorize that they've lessened the radioactivity from these events to save us from ourselves. I don't know if they will. We got to come up with something. Yeah, we got to come up with some other better source. And if our government or these contractors, which I really think it's in their hands, I think our government has some. I think we have some reverse engineered. Look at Bob Lazar's testimony and others that we do have these reverse engineered programs within our government installations. But they're so heavily tied to the military contractors, and most of it's outsourced that we're just not going to get the picture. We're not going to get it from our government.
No, I don't think we are. There's that new program, ARROW, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
Yeah, another long anagram title.
If you looked into their goals, that really raised my eyebrows, because the first 3 were basically surveying and determining the capabilities and this sort of thing. But the last 3, one was mitigating the UFO presence. Well, good luck with that.
Right? What are you going to do?
Another was governing it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to do that either. And the final goal is to obtain their technology.
Yeah, see, and I think a lot of that lies in mitigating it, controlling it, is them saying, military contractors, Lockheed, Raytheon, you're on notice. You've been hiding this technology that we helped you get, and we want it back. I think that's part of why this is happening. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think from a military perspective, there's got to be a lot of panic out there, because these are guys who can do whatever they want and are flying over our most sensitive installations.
Yeah.
So I get that they're a little shook up. But let's look at the Malmstrom incident in 1967.
You're right. That's a big one when you want to talk about nuclear missiles.
Yeah, because I actually interviewed a gentleman who was there.
We're going to hold you on that thought. We're going to hold on that because we got to go to commercial break, because I'd like to hear that when we get back. Because I was one of the things that came up in the hearings that they did bring up Malmstrom. And I really would love to wish they could have gotten into that more in those hearings. That should be some national security threats happening right there. But we got to go. Wrong button. We got to go to commercial break. When we come back with our guest Preston Dennett, we'll continue talking about that. I definitely want to talk about Malmstrom and how that relates to these discussions. When we come back with a short commercial break, and we'll open up the phone lines. You can call in with your own questions after the commercial break. Wait to call in then, but we'll be right back.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID Jblandoo or Jblandparanormalsoup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Preston Dennett. He's a UFO investigator, paranormal researcher. He's author of over 30 books, 100 articles. He's been on TV. You've probably seen him on a number of different UFO and alien programs. He's one of my favorite guests to have on. We've had a lot on aliens the last several weeks. We've been doing the show last several Sundays. It's a topic on our minds, right? 2024, is this a year of contact? I don't know, with 10-foot tall aliens in them all? No. But there are lots of people out there, millions, as Preston stated, that have had these encounters that are real and with a variety of different alien species. While our government is slowly getting more warm to the topic, but I doubt we're actually going to get much from them. But it's getting more people comfortable to talk. And one of the things that came up in these congressional hearings, I would love for them to bring up again, is the Maelstrom incident with a UFO shutting down our nuclear missiles. I've had Paul's on the last couple weeks. Preston's going to talk about that, and the phone lines are now open. You can call in the show, join the discussion. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right, Preston, before the break, we were talking about Maelstrom. I was so happy when that came up in the congressional hearings. Not much came of it. I would love if they would actually interview the people that witnessed it and really look into it and everything, but at least it was mentioned.
Yeah, well, barely. They asked Moultrie and Daly, have you heard of it? And they're like, well, no, we have no reporting on that.
Really? Yeah, really?
I heard that for a second. That was, they lied throughout that. That was the initial hearing.
There's Freedom of Information Act. I think, aren't there some documents come out to prove that something happened at Maelstrom then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was scrubbed clean pretty much of the UFO incidents, but the fact that the missiles went down, that is documented.
Documented fact that happened. None of these guys are coming out are going to lie. And they've stuck to their story. What happened? I forget the one gentleman's name they've interviewed the most. Who did you interview on Maelstrom?
It wasn't Salas, who I have talked to.
No, Salas. That's
and some of the other guys have come forward. But the guy I talked to is Mel Hansen, who heard it on Unsolved Mysteries and thought, well, shoot, I'm old. I think it's time. And contacted a few researchers before he found me. He's like, listen, no one wanted to talk to me. I'm like, I'll talk to you, dude.
Yeah, definitely. You want to talk Maelstrom.
And, verified his employment. He is for real. He's a civilian contractor who would go to military bases, basically making sure that everything was in working order, and had his team there at Maelstrom in March of 1967 when the UFOs showed up. It wasn't just one or two UFOs, there were multiple, and one came over one of the missile sites that he was working on. His team was underground. He's in the Jeep with the security officer topside at night when this UFO shows up, and he can't really tell how high up it is or how big it is. Because
it's a light in the sky, right? That's
it was a dark object. It was occluding the stars. Yeah, no lights on it.
Oh.
They said it was huge and it was low. And as soon as it comes over the missile site, it goes right offline. Now, these things have fail safes. So it went immediately back online. Let me see if I can get this right with battery power. Well, that went off. And there's a second fail safe, which is a diesel generator. So it went back online and then it went off again. And of course, by this time, he's communicating with the base central, who said, don't get out of the Jeep, don't do anything, just stay there, we're on our way. These are separate sites, very different from each other. It takes 45 minutes to get there from the base central. So they're racing to get there. He, of course, does get out of the Jeep because he wants to take a look at this thing. He said the security guy wouldn't get out. He was scared to death. And the missile was completely shut down till about the next morning. The security people showed up, took him back to the base, said, leave all your tools, leave it all. You're going back. And they basically drilled him all night long about what happened and told him, you are not to talk to anybody about this. You will lose your, everything.
Yeah.
You will be jailed. You are not to talk to even your own spouse or your team members, nobody. And he obeyed that, except for one of the guys who was his best friend, and they would go camping out in the forest, and they would talk about it. But he says they all died. So he says, I think it's time to talk. I want this out. And he had another major sighting following that, just in a civilian capacity, but it was widely viewed, and the police tried to cover it up and didn't want to talk about it. But yeah, he was part of the Maelstrom incident, and there's a lot more witnesses out there, I think, who have been involved in these kind of incidents, because it's not unique. This sort of happened in South Dakota, what was it, Wurtsmith?
That sounds familiar.
Quite a few of these types of incidents. Yeah. Can you imagine?
I've heard of that one.
The top brass must have felt about that when all these things go bunk, 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 bunk. They're separate systems, by the way. They're not linked to each other.
Right.
So there's really no way that could coincidentally happen.
And after the fall of the Soviet Union, we got stories from their side that those things were happening to them.
Exactly. Turning on or turning
them on or off. On is really scary. That's the really scary story, them turning it on.
Yeah, but
you
they
know.
didn't destroy it, did they? And they
But they didn't.
launch
No,
them, did they?
didn't.
No.
But it's just showing that they had the capability, maybe a warning.
Yeah, well, one guy, he was taken on board. I think this was like the day before the Phoenix Lights incident. Pulled him on board. He's just driving along, sees this thing coming over his car, gets out. Next thing he knows, he's on board. Little gray guys are all around him, showing him these screens of every single military base that had anything atomic with it. They told him, we can shut these off at any time we want. You need to tell people to stop doing this. So
I mean, what if they secretly did? What if they've already gone and shut off every single nuclear weapon off out there, and everybody's just like, it's all a show. None of it works because the aliens shut it off. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Wouldn't that be hilarious?
I would love it. Yeah, I think
that'd be great. That'd be a best case scenario. Sadly, I don't think that's it. I think they definitely still got the nukes. I mean, look. I mean,
it's insanity to use those kind of weapons. What do you think?
Yeah,
it's going to hurt everybody.
That's why, Kennedy was one of my favorite presidents because how much he fought back against the military-industrial complex and the military who wanted to just all out try to have a nuclear war with Russia, think we could win it.
Well, we lost some blood over it, apparently.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we were lucky in that time of history to have at least one person who stood against it. Dear God, what other president we could have had at that time if Nixon had won? Dear God. I'm sorry if you're a Nixon fan, but, what decision would he have made differently? The Bay of Pigs, or, that was his plan. That was Nixon put that together, and then he didn't get elected, and Kennedy had that mess. So he already knew not to trust his intelligence agencies. He already had them screw him over. But, imagine if he was shown alien bodies in this tech and what we were doing. And the supposed rumor is that they killed Kennedy because he wanted to share this with Russia because they're having flyovers that are scaring them that they could launch their nukes, same as us. That we needed to share this information so we didn't end up blindly firing at each other because an alien set it off.
Yeah, hey, I'm all for truth and transparency on this subject.
Well, obviously our military wasn't.
No, and I don't think they are right now. The cover-up's still firmly in place. I expect we will see some interesting developments this year along the lines of more blurry photographs, maybe some films, maybe even a piece of metal. But we're not going to see the Roswell craft ever, I don't think.
No. I mean, you remember Bob Lazar said, I did hear the hearings that came out, we had 9 craft. I'm like, oh, that's a Bob Lazar, I told you so. Because that's, he had the S4 and the 9 craft, he had the sports model and all that, that we have these things, just sitting there. Look at it this way. I can see where the military industrial complex, these private contractors like Lockheed, Raytheon, and them have probably outpaced our government research on reverse engineering it. Like, we handed it off to them to see if they could get anything out of it, and we had our own inside programs running like at S4, But here we are getting somebody like Bob. Not this is not a knock on Bob Lazar, but he was a low-level physicist that they hire out of what was it, Los Alamos Labs or something like that. They're putting people on that aren't big names or big brilliant minds, and it's not a knock on Bob Lazar. I'm just saying that they're trying to find people they could, nobody's gonna like, who's Bob Lazar? Who's gonna question him? It's not like they're getting Michio Kaku working on it or something.
Right, but I think there's quite a few of these guys out there because we're seeing them come forward. I had one guy approach me on his deathbed, as we were talking about, in a hospital. He wanted to do his part for disclosure.
Really?
And would not let his name be used even after he died. But he had a very interesting experience. In short, he was a subcontractor at Edwards Air Force Base doing construction and did a job and was walking along the tarmac, passing by a warehouse, heard a humming noise, looked over at this huge open window and saw a UFO inside, floating off the ground. Sports car sized, silver, no markings on it. Turned to his employer and said, "What the heck is that?" His employer turned white, put his finger up against his lips and said, "Shut up," and would not talk about it. For years, actually, until a couple of years go by, and this same guy that I interviewed gets a call from the same employer. He says, "I need you for a job. It's an emergency." And the guy I interviewed says, I'm not doing it unless you tell me what we saw." And they got in this huge argument, went to a bar, had beers, got drunk, and he got the story. He says, his employer said, "You are never to talk about this. This could cost your life, your job, everything." But he did. He talked about it years and years later.
But he didn't give his name because the guy warned him it could cost your life, your job, who knows, your family.
Right. He said it wasn't a UFO that they saw. This was reverse engineered from ET tech. Involved a craft that uses a concept of counter-rotating magnetic fields, creating a magnetic field on the outside of the craft which propelled it in the desired direction, but wouldn't go beyond that. There's
patents out there. There's patents out there that prove that they've worked on this technology.
Yeah. Yvonne Smith, one of her clients, John Long, high school education, was taken on board and started learning all the stuff from the ETs and filing patents about magnetic motors.
Yeah.
And did it, and actually had the Secret Service or one of the three-letter agencies show up and say, you might have to cancel this patent, and we want to talk to anyone you told about this. So
because they already had it.
Storing it. He divided it into two and patented it that way. But you can look these up.
Yeah.
I found other people who are contactees who are filing patents right and left on these sort of things.
Well, they talk about, the way technology is, think of how far we've come, how fast we've come. I mean, from, 70 years between the first plane, the, Wright brothers' first flight to the moon landing, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. That's how fast we jump technology.
Yeah, my grandma was born before they even had cars. I mean,
yeah.
If you think about
electric cars aren't going so great, but technology there. But that's the thing. But we went that fast with that kind of technology. We've gone super fast and look at AI. I mean, we want to talk about the nuclear scenario. I wonder what the aliens think of the AI taking over the nuclear weapons. Because I'm a kid of the 80s, and one of the movies that I watched a billion times was War Games. Remember that with Matthew Broderick? And they had, "Want to play a game?" I had that sound somewhere. But, he goes, you want to play a game? The AI, because the whole premise, remember the beginning of that movie is a guy sitting at a thing, two guys have to launch the keys together and everything, and the one guy has second thoughts, is like, no, I'm not going to do it, and they end up shooting each other or something like that. I don't remember, it's been years. But we have to have AI take over this because humans can't make that decision. But throughout history, when we've had these close calls, it's been a human disobeying orders, keeping us from going to nuclear war. That ain't going to happen once we hand it over to AI.
Yeah, well, look at the self-driving cars, which, have already caused a few fatal accidents.
Yeah, they're not there yet.
I don't want a self-driving car, because what if someone hacks that? Next thing you know, you're driving off.
Which they can. Which they can. They've proven it.
All the time. Why would you put yourself in something like that? All of these things can be hacked. Your front door locks, just everything.
And then there's the show that came out a couple of years ago I really love called Upload, where they upload people's consciousness to this virtual heaven. But in it, the main character is killed because they hack his self-driving car and drive him, into an accident. And then they kill another woman that's investigating, his aunt who's investigating. They drive her off into the ocean.
Yeah, all the smart houses that people are, equipping, and we're being watched. The privacy is a complete illusion. You mentioned something.
We freely give it away. We freely give our privacy away.
You're going to see the commercial on it on TV the next day. So
I don't know how many times I've talked about something, I get on my feed, and there it is.
Yep. You can actually test this personally.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and like I said, we're freely giving it away with all of our smart devices. Right? But we're giving it all away. They don't need to bug our houses. They're already bugged with your Alexa, your smartphone, and your smartwatch, and everything else.
Every email, every phone.
Then they had the flying helicopters. This no driverless or a driverless self-flying like helicopter type little car. No way. Getting trapped or locked inside that if it gets glitched.
And all of a sudden it gets hacked, and you're going to go.
There is absolutely no way.
But there's no way they're going to let somebody have. It's not going to be like the Jetsons where you get your own flying car and you're driving around like a mad idiot.
Yeah. Well, can you
They're
imagine
not
what
gonna
that would do to property values
They're
if you could just
working on those.
shift over, long
Yeah.
distances to property that's super cheap and isolated? It would wreak havoc with the economy.
Yeah,
And
nobody's
the,
gonna own a flying car. It'll be like, I'm calling my Uber car flying car. You know, you won't own it.
in the last 3 months, I've seen 2 or 3 cars that have launched and landed through people's roofs alone. So they haven't mastered driving on the ground yet. I don't think that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, when we talk about self-driving cars, if there's gonna be flying cars, they are not gonna be driven by humans. They will be automatically piloted. And how comfortable are you with that?
I'd rather
What
take
happened with
my
the
chance with a human.
with the recent writers' strike in Hollywood and the AI imitating
Taking over the
people's
took our
voices?
jibs.
Yeah, you give them your image, and next thing you know, you've got 20 movies made about you, and you just signed the wrong contract.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Selling
I,
likeness.
sorry, Paul Blake Smith, but I'm gonna call him out for this because he wants to do a Jackie Gleason Nixon movie, like a movie about that whole thing that happened. It's like we could have Jackie Gleason. You know, we get the rights from his family. It could be a digital recreation of Jackie Gleason. I'm like, yeah. That wait for that happen. Yep, that's gonna happen. You're not. I mean, that's where we're at too with the UFO community. Is that you can't believe everything you see, even if it looks completely real, because everything can be digitally faked now, completely.
And they
Yeah.
want you to know that. So you're always confused.
It's very worrisome because they could basically make anybody say anything and put you in any kind
Or
of
do
scenario.
anything.
Yeah.
Or you
It'll
could
be
be
great.
important.
It'll be a great legal defense for anybody if the Epstein tapes come out.
No, that's terrifying. They can make you do or say the most horrendous, horrible, disgusting thing, and that's terrifying. Or people can be in court and say, "Hey, that's not me. Prove it. That's an AI."
Like I said, that's going to be the defense of if the Epstein tapes, which will never come out. But if they did, that'd be the defense. It's been AI manipulated.
Yeah, just play a little clip from Jurassic Park and say, "Look, if they can do this."
Right. Well, that was way back ago. Yeah. Right.
Well, they
yeah.
already put out the AI. They admitted that it was AI. I don't think it was redacted. Where they had Biden talking about there being a draft, and it looked so real.
Oh yeah, that
But
video
it
went
was
viral.
AI. People believed it is the thing,
Yeah.
even though they stated this is AI. This is what it would or could look like if this were to happen.
Yeah, and this touches on the whole UFO situation too, because how hard would it be to, you've seen some of those 5-dimensional ads in Japan where cars are coming out of billboards or the whale.
Well, there's even ones they make in the sky out of nothing. Like literally, you're projecting it in the sky.
Yeah.
There's your alien invasion right there.
Yeah, that's the Project Bluebeam people have been. They're getting more right every day
They
with
freak
what the
out over
technology
a
can do.
meteor.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't take much. They see it does not take much to
Well, that's
fool
what
a bunch of people.
Well, like that's what I said with the Miami thing. Maybe they just let the internet eat itself on that one, just to see, create a a little experiment, put a couple memes out there, put out a couple Reddit stories, and then let the story just go wild. And you get plenty of people like that one guy I showed, who's like, "Oh, I saw the aliens. Me and my girl had to swerve out of there," and the next day he's like, "Ah, I was just trolling." It's like, why? But that's what the internet does.
They use actual psychotronic technology, which I think they have, where they can basically put a voice in your brain.
Oh yeah, that's
You're hearing
scary.
stuff.
We had a guest talk about that there was a device, they could be so far behind you, and it would sound as if, I can't remember how far up the person would be, but like somebody was right
Like was
next
talking
to you,
in your ear.
whispering in your ear.
Yeah, I saw a mainstream news story on this 5 or 10 years ago, at least, of a billboard in New York, which if you walked by, it would talk into your head.
Yeah.
And it disappeared from the news, and I've never seen it again. And I almost question my own sanity sometimes because I'm sure I heard this. I watched
Mandela
it.
effect. I don't know.
I'm telling you, they have this technology.
And maybe they were trying to release it. And they're like, hold on, that's not to be released yet.
Also, supposedly, there's supposed to be some sort of what appears to be an invasion where we're fighting them and there's actual lasers being shot, but it's not supposed to be real. So we're supposed to not be able to believe what we see with our eyes, which then makes me think, well, what if you're just telling us that and there is something really going on? But it's like one step higher than blue beam.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've always been torn. Will they try to fake a alien invasion? Where, the purpose of it. Yeah, you could totally get if you really pulled it off and it made it spectacular for the world to believe in it and everybody's focused in on it, is that you get all these nations to kowtow and become one world government.
And that's the one reason I do hear people say for that. It's to fear not the UFO, but the person driving the UFO. And who's going to protect you from that? The government. So it's to get everybody to believe in their savior who's going to protect them from, this horrible, scary thing, and then move into the new world order, one world, everything.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what's going on. But at the same time, even if that's true, even though that's what they're doing, there's still really aliens coming here, and they still had gotten real alien tech from real aliens, so they're faking it. Maybe they're faking it with a certain group of aliens that are in on it.
Well, I hope the public is smart enough to not believe something like that.
Well, that's the thing. We are there. I mean, we don't trust our government. Obviously, I think many people are like, most of us see the disclosure thing as a joke. We don't trust our government. We don't trust what they tell us. I mean, they obviously, it's just accepted now. We all accept that our government lies to us. There used to be a day where people didn't accept that. But the government said it. It's true. Yeah. That day's long gone.
Which is why I always tell people, don't believe the things coming out of government. It's not
or
true.
The media.
Right. If you want to know the truth about UFO contact, go to the contactees. That's where you'll get the real information. People who've been taken on board. And if you look at their experiences objectively, throwing away your prior beliefs, you can get a pretty good handle on what's going on. And it's not at all what the government's putting out.
Exactly.
No. And, you say, contactees, people, when they think about it, they think of abduction and fire in the sky and Whitley Strieber. And even Whitley Strieber's had a growing relationship. I don't know what you want to call it. I've listened to his podcast for years with aliens. Like it's not the fear anymore. He doesn't have that fear. He has a relationship. I'm saying it's developed. Right. And I see this with a lot of abductees. It starts out scary, and then it progresses into this mutual kind of contactee experience. And there's some people, they just get the contactee experience right off the bat.
And some people never make it there. It was just too traumatic for them, and I'm done with this. All I remember is being, examined, and it was horrendous. I didn't like it, and they never recover the amnesia or the missing time. Which is all the good stuff of where you're, taken up to the observation deck and shown Earth far below, or the moon, or Saturn, or another planet. This is not uncommon. Or they will take you to the control room and sit you down in the pilot seat. I love that book by Grant Cameron, Sky Pilots, which just came out, because I'm like, yes, this is exactly
I gotta read that.
Dolly Safran.
That'd be my dream. That'd be my dream. Like, can I see the cockpit? Can I sit and fly this thing?
They'll do it if you're not.
Really? Come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take that alien abduction experience. Come on.
Happened to Jay Gardner, this guy I interviewed from West Virginia. He was 10 years old. They sat him down. He drove the darn UFO right into the ground. But it had its force field on, of course, and so it just went through the Earth. And they're like, they laughed.
Transphasic?
Transmedium.
Yeah.
And they took control, but they said it's fine. And they took him to Saturn, just like they did to Dolly Safran, just like they did to, I think it was Ray Fowler who had that experience, the famous researcher. Leo Sprinkle, too. I mean, they will take you to wherever you want to go. There was a guy who they showed him the pyramids of Egypt. They'll take you on an orbit around the Earth. Not uncommon.
There was former, I think, Russian or a province of Russia, or it was like a politician or somebody, a leader. What was his name? Damn it! Where they took him, like, total contactee experience. Where they took him and showed him there's like a galactic federation and all this stuff. and he
I
openly
forget
talked
who
about
you're
it.
Talking about.
Yeah, I can't think of
remember
it.
his name either.
But this was a politician. This was somebody in government they took and showed him this. You wonder how many more people they've taken in government and showed.
A lot. I did a whole study on world leaders who've had contact. I was surprised. Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan are, of course, oft quoted.
Right.
There was Governor Gilligan of Ohio and Senator Russell of Virginia and another guy from Florida. Of course, the guy who saw the Phoenix Lights, Fife Symington, a governor.
Yeah, he didn't have a great reaction initially.
No, but I got to give him kudos for at least
later.
Later, would have been nice if he did it at that time.
Because there was that one councilwoman, they basically just trashed and ruined her career.
Frances Barwood.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Yeah, it's just horrible. Just because she just asked what the public was asking, which is her job. She represents the people.
President of Libya had a sighting. Mexico, Brazil, lots of world leaders.
One of the presidents of Mexico, or somebody who was an official in Mexico, has talked about that. They've always known aliens are there, that there's lizard people basically living in Mexico.
Oh, I
remember who
heard
it
about the
was.
lizard people.
Yeah.
Reptilians. Every reptilian report I've gotten hasn't really, well, not everyone, but most have not involved a UFO. These are people out in the wilderness, in the Everglades or what have you.
Or in caves or stuff like that, I've heard,
I think they're crypto-terrestrials.
Yeah, like they've just been here. Like it's the Silurian, or what do they call it? Silurian? It's from Doctor Who theory that, they've been here. They were a civilization millions of years ago, and they live inside the Earth now or something.
Yep. I think
as long as they don't come out wearing fake skin, eating gerbils, and taking over the planet. Sorry,
I don't get a whole lot.
fan.
I don't get a whole lot of reptilian reports for whatever reason. I just haven't.
Not when it seems like that. It does seem like that is like it's almost like its own crypto kind of thing. The way people encounter them, they see them appear in the room. We're interdimensional with them sometimes. I don't know, but I mean, there's something with reptiles and dragons and all that stuff. You get back to the ancient aliens and all that. There's some connection to the whole serpent and reptilian thing, and who knows what their involvement is. There's a whole variety of alien species.
Well, I did talk to a lady who she and her brother had a lifetime of contact, and she had reptilians come right through her wall, and she thought they were bad, evil, didn't like it, felt that they were there to steal her soul.
Honestly, I would have a bad reception to reptilians too. I don't like snakes. I don't like the reptile kind of thing. They creep me out, and that'd be the one alien species that would freak me out. Freak me out. And maybe it's my childhood. My mom shouldn't have let me watch V when I was a kid. I don't know. But they freak me out. Like, I would not want to run across a reptilian.
Researcher Barbara Lamb, who I spoke to about a reptilian encounter she had, said it was very pleasant. Basically, it appeared
I've
in
heard
her
that.
living room, shook her hand, I think. It was an absolutely benevolent encounter.
Yeah, they could be really nice guys. It's just this, people like me that are like, yeah, you look like a snake, get away. They're not going to get a good reception from this human. I'm just saying.
We're a very fearful species. We're all victims of the UFO cover-up too.
Yeah.
Honestly, so the ridicule and disbelief, it's so difficult to move this.
What are contactees saying about what the aliens say about why they don't reveal themselves?
Well, here's a case from Donald Shallcross in Virginia, where he asked them that flat out, because he had an encounter face-to-face with human-looking ETs. He says, why don't you just show yourselves? And the
Especially if you're human-looking.
Yeah, the ET says, we are right now, and we will continue. But they're not going to show themselves on a worldwide basis because it would upset our economy, our government. We're not ready. We have to elect world leaders that have our own best interests in mind. We have to stop fighting each other and killing each other and stealing. And that's their main concern, is the greed and corruption that is choking our society.
I believe that.
I mean, according to the Eisenhower story, is that he told the aliens we weren't ready, don't expose yourselves. That sounds so awful. Like aliens are coming around going, ah, but
they are.
But
That's the thing. If
yeah.
you look at what happened in Gulf Breeze and Hudson Valley and Wytheville, Virginia, and Belgium, and the French wave in 1954. If you haven't looked that up, that's amazing.
In 1954, we had the UFOs over Washington.
Exactly. There was a huge super wave in 1947 that should have left no doubt what's going on here. But the cover-up was clamped down real hard at that exact time.
Yeah. Well, 54 was Eisenhower, Maybe they were, he had these meetings and maybe they weren't happy and that was like a show of, like, hey, we could show ourselves anytime.
Yeah,
a warning to him.
In 1991 in Mexico City, during the solar eclipse, a UFO hovered over Mexico City for about an hour or two and was filmed by 30 different people with video.
I remember that.
And you can still look that up. It's hard to find.
Yeah.
But
I remember it, though. I remember seeing that. It's incredible.
That's a display. That's exactly what they're doing. They're putting forth a vigorous publicity campaign and leaving no doubt. I wrote a whole book about schoolyard encounters.
Yes, that's one of my favorites by you, actually.
Oh,
is your schoolyard encounter book.
Because, I've been in this field for a long time.
Yeah.
Heard about Rua, Zimbabwe, which we've all heard about.
Yeah.
The 200 kids in the school, Ariel Elementary.
Did you watch the Netflix special recently?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one guy's testimony which I threw out. I feel like he's a plant or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. There seems like the government maybe get involved in some of these stories, or maybe certain UFO researchers that want their certain agenda put into it. But if you get down to the brass tacks of some of these kids and the original stories, something happened. Like,
no doubt.
There's definitely no doubt something happened, but it isn't like the way it's been re-reported over the years. There's a lot missing.
Exactly, and I love the Rua Zimbabwe case because it's kind of the ultimate, but it's
yeah. Was that 1966 or something?
94.
Oh no, that was the 94. I'm thinking. Okay, I'm confusing.
You're thinking of Westall High School.
Yes, sorry. There's a number of them that I love. I get them mixed up with when and what one happened. Yeah.
Yeah, Westall High School. 2 weeks before that was Hillsdale College, which was another schoolyard encounter, and that's when Jim and Coral Lorenzen said, "You know what? We've got a bunch of these schoolyard encounters." Jim and Coral Lorenzen, of course, being of APRO, the first civilian UFO research organization. And they said, "This is going to happen again." Sure enough, 2 weeks later, it did. And Raymond Fowler, he saw that Hillsdale case, which, by the way, was a 2-hour-long event. The UFO landed next to the college. Most people don't know this. Police saw it. It was a major event.
And they want to talk to children. What I've thought about with your I will love is the Fatima with the 3 children. If you look into that, there's a lot of aspects of that could seem like that this might have been an actual UFO encounter, just like these kids were having in schoolyards.
I think so, because if you look at if you read the eyewitness testimonies, people do describe a metallic craft and a lot of the things we do see in modern day accounts. It's just old enough where it's hard to pin down because there are really no first-hand witnesses living at this point.
But why children? Why are they going to these schoolyards and trying to reach children, do you think?
I think it's a very effective and clever method to complete their publicity campamping.
Get them while they're young?
Exactly. Children
before they're brainwashed by the school that they just landed next to?
100%. Because they're not going to interpret this as angels or demons or anything. I love these schoolyard cases because, get this, I found 100 of them. It's now 200.
Oh my God.
Half of them were at elementary schools, our youngest kids, who have never heard of a UFO. So they make excellent witnesses. And when you've got a crowd of them, with teachers, by the way, over half of these cases have teachers there who are educated. They make excellent witnesses, and they're not retracting their stories. Look at the Broadhaven kids.
Yeah.
They have reunions yearly. I think it's yearly.
Yeah.
But I found, 100 cases. And if you look at them, it's really interesting because it's as if the ETs are doing like a Madonna tour or
Yeah, Madonna. Well, her tour, if you haven't noticed lately, is pretty scary. So I don't know. Don't take examples with that.
Well, they're doing a book tour, so to speak.
Yeah, there we go.
Hitting one school after another. I mean, there was one that Ray Fowler investigated, Beverly High School, where they came over to the school, showed themselves, and went straight to the nearby college and came down and showed them off to them. It's clearly intentional.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Low level, long lasting. And this was another thing that blew my mind. Because who knew this was going on? I mean, I'd been in this field for 30 years and had no idea this was a thing. But they are landing, or humanoids are getting out in 1/3 of these cases. When you look at
the actual interactions with the extraterrestrials,
landings are exceedingly rare compared to sightings. And humanoids, of course, even more so. But we're seeing that regularly with these schoolyard encounters. It's a clear case of them saying, "Hi, it's us. We're here. Remember this." Well, that's what they told one lady I interviewed. They said, "Remember this. Remember this day." She had a sighting at Mentor Elementary School, right near a drive-in theater encounter. And that's another book I did about drive-in theater sightings.
Drive-in theaters? Well, you think about everybody sitting there in the middle of the night looking at a screen. If anything flies in the vicinity near it, you're going to notice.
Yeah, well, that was my
especially if the movie's bad.
Yeah. Well, often it is, but well, people are out there at night, they're going to see stuff. But no, that's not what's going on here. These are being targeted. Absolutely, 100%.
But maybe it's because people are there looking and they're like, hey, we can get their attention here.
No, it comes, well, yeah, I think they've got a captive audience.
Right.
But here's a case, let me see if I can get this right, 1952, terrorist drive-in Bakersfield. Object comes down, hovers right over the screen. We're talking feet above it. This is what they do.
Yeah.
It turns on its lights, it flashes, it takes off. Well, there's a military witness in the crowd who calls the police, Sheriff Hatfield. And other people start calling. And they receive a bunch of calls. Sheriff Hatfield goes down there, interviews 30, 40 people. Says, that's enough. I've got enough to figure out what happened here. Reports it to Edwards Air Force Base. Project Blue Book is in its infancy. It's, Project Grudge or some Project Sign.
Project Sign, probably. Yeah.
But they take that report very seriously. I found the documents declassified. The documents marked action, and it went, get this, the next day. And I've got this in a couple of other of these drive-in theater cases. It went the next day to the commanding general of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So you can't tell me.
That's where you would go back then. That was the headquarters of everything. I mean, if you go back to the Majestic documents, that's hangar. If there's a hangar 18 or whatever, Wright-Patterson is the Area 51 of its time. Yep.
And it went to Washington, D.C. and Ent Air Force Base in Colorado, which is where we track everything.
Yep.
And I've got a couple of other cases like that. And Blue Book comes along and they're like, balloon.
Yeah. Swamp gas. It's swamp gas. It's a gassy place.
It's birds. Yeah. What you saw was birds. Never mind the lights.
But that's what I feel like we're going to get with the AARO, whatever you want to call it, I feel like we're gonna get a Project Blue Book 2.0. Like some of the footage that we've been given, they know is explainable and not extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
like they do it to set us up.
That first one a couple of years ago, they're like, okay, we have some film footage. It took them 10 minutes to stop frame that little white dot.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember that, but
yes,
it was infuriating. I'm like, wait a second, where's the gun camera footage?
Right.
Major White's footage of the high altitude test flight they did over in Nevada, where he saw 7 of these objects and filmed them. Where's the Edwards Air Force Base landing? That Cooper.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I've said that on the show. Yeah. We were just talking about this last week. I brought that up about Cooper. He saw he didn't see it with his eyes, but he got the film footage from the cameras. He saw it on camera. A craft land down, humanoids get out, get back in and take off, and hands it off to the Pentagon, and it's disappeared somewhere. It's got to be somewhere.
Right? That's what I want to see. Show us that, and that'll be a major step. But until we have that Roswell craft in the museum and the bodies that we can touch, it's not disclosure.
I mean, according to Jackie Gleason, Nixon had 4 bodies there at Homestead Air Force Base at one point. That we were shipping these things around. That that there are things that these congressmen really want to look into, The Pentagon's not playing ball, whatever, but there's Freedom of Information Act. There's things you can get. There's evidence out there. There's long history to back all this up. You don't have to go get it from the military.
Right, exactly. Military is neck deep involved in this stuff. There's no doubt about that. Look up an Air Force base and connect the UFO history that's going on around it.
Oh, yeah.
It's startling.
Go ahead.
I interviewed one lady. She's a teacher in O'Fallon, Illinois, who had this encounter while she was out jogging with her dog at 3 a.m. or so. She loves 4 a.m. She likes to get up early and jog near her home. It's a little town. And her dog stops and looks ahead, and she's thinking, oh, it's going to be a deer, a fox, whatever, crossing the road. This often happens. This is Kyle Road in O'Fallon, Illinois. And she looks, and her first thought was it was a guy on stilts walking down the street until it walks up to the street light, and it's all the way up to the street light. It's 15 feet tall. This is why she contacted me, because this was a praying mantis.
Just walking out in the road.
Yep. Kind of white gray. Booking it. 7-foot strides, real fast. Its head was down. It's looking back and forth, apparently looking for something. Didn't see her, but she and her dog ran after it. I probably would have turned around. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she ran after it and watched it run off into the cornfield. And I asked her to listen, what's around there? Why do you think this thing was there? Did you see a UFO? She says, no, I didn't. There's nothing around there. There's cornfields. I looked it up. You can look this up on Google Maps, of course. But she's like, there's one thing. This is real close. We live right next door to Scott Air Force Base. I thought, oh, God, Scott. That's where the UFO flew over during that Illinois wave in 2001. Remember that? All the police officers saw it over neighboring counties.
Yeah.
Right over Scott Air Force Base. And they said, we knew nothing. Our radar was off at that time.
It was magically off. Yeah, of course. I had my son had a teacher who, when he found out I was doing this show, stopped me we were on a field trip. He was telling me, he's like, I was on this field trip in Chicago, near Chicago. I don't think they were in Chicago. And I don't remember exactly where they were at, but I have it somewhere in my notes. And him and his whole class saw a UFO up in the sky, like a silver disc UFO and all that. And I remember trying to find out, if there was anybody else in the area that had a sighting, and I did find one that was like in the same date, in the same general area of a sighting that happened at that time, and gave it to him. But he didn't report to anybody. But he's like, I didn't really talk to anybody about this ever before, But when he found out he did the show, he's like, I got to tell you this story, So I think there's a lot of teachers out there that see stuff with these students or there's kids and these UFOs are like keeping an eye on or trying to give messages to that don't want to say anything.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate because I've always asked people when I interview them, did you tell anybody? Did you call the police? Did you report it to MUFON? And usually the answer is MUFON. What's that?
MUFON? Yeah, they get such a small percentage, right?
But it's amazing because there's a case in New Zealand, Maranui, New Zealand, where a UFO hovered over Richmond Elementary School for 15 minutes, and 400 kids and teachers saw it. That's a lot. There's an airport right next door. Didn't see a thing, or so they say.
Yep. They wouldn't say.
Yeah.
They signed NDAs.
Still, that's insane. Someone's got to be seeing this. Crestview Elementary School in 1967, literally the same day, 1 year after the Westall High School case. They had a UFO land next to the school. Military showed up while it was still there. Anyone who had a bike or walked to school was told to go home. Everyone else was put on a bus. And, a bunch of students have come forward. Some are still talking. And the military said it's helicopters. Airport right next to it, by the way.
Yeah.
They didn't see a thing. Sure you didn't.
Yeah, sure. We've heard from the newest thing is that the AR will take pilots' reports, civilian pilots' reports. I'm like, yeah, but are they going to report it? Because they could report it to you, but they could lose their job. You know, a lot of these guys fear that. You know, they want their mental capabilities questioned because that's a big one. Of course, I think the airlines are now so desperate for pilots, they can all get away with telling it now. Because, like, yeah, you saw a UFO, okay, we still need you to fly tomorrow because we don't have enough pilots. You know, so this might be the time for pilots to start talking.
Well, I hope they do, because if it wasn't for Captain Kenju Torochi back in
Oh,
November of
yeah.
1984,
It ruined his career.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in this field. That was the case that woke me up.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, this crazy pilot, he's got to be lying. Or
What he saw was huge. It was huge.
On his radar, on the FAA's radar. They denied it, called it a split image. But Callahan, he got the actual radar tapes. They said they didn't ask for him, so I kept them. And he released them and made that case a classic. But that's
Didn't the CIA get involved with that reportedly, with the data from that?
Yeah.
I think the CIA got involved with that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was a big cover-up, for sure. But
yeah, and like they made him take a desk job after that.
Yep, he was grounded for years, Torochi.
Yeah,
But
that's
when
horrible.
I heard that, I asked my brother Mark, my older brother, I'm like, you said you saw a UFO, didn't you? Because I didn't believe him when he said it years ago. And he's like, oh, yeah, I followed one in my car, me and my friend Phil and Greg. And he described this disc with, little lights on it. I'm like, oh, my God. Found out my sister-in-law had a sighting, my other sister-in-law, several family friends, people at work. One had missing time. Oh, I was
missing
21
time.
years
It's like,
old.
hey, buddy, I hate to break this to you. You
That's
might
what I
have had
told
some
him.
alien probing going on.
That's what I told Dorothy. She lost her mind. She's like, what are you talking about? Because she says, it's weird. We lived 5 minutes from the library. We left at 9 because right when it closed, we lived 5 minutes away, Pio Pico Library in Koreatown. Got home, it was 10:15. I'm like, Dorothy, you were abducted.
Yeah.
I don't do that now.
may have-
Witnesses.
Yeah.
I was
But,
young.
Well, yeah, now you got to be more delicate to try to get somebody to tell somebody that. But at the time, you're more justified to be like, you've been abducted. You've been probed. But that's the thing. There's so many people that have had these weird, slight little encounters in their life maybe just once in their life, and that's it. And they just keep it to themselves. They're never going to talk about it. But maybe, now that this is more prevalent in the media, you're getting a little. I mean, I had ABC News down in this same basement of doing this, interviewing me because of the disclosure movement. Little old me. And I love it because of the reporter, as nice as she is. I'm like, welcome to the party, pal. I'm like, there's so much history, so many things that you guys got a lot of catching up to do in the news that you've been ignoring.
This is me when I get a call from the TV folk because I'm like, damn, you do not know this? This has been going on for a very long time.
That's the frustrating thing, listening to like the mainstream media talk about this stuff, is like how clueless they are to the history of it. That there's so much history here. There's so much stuff that's been going on, and you guys are just barely waking up to it. And so it's frustrating to listen to you talk about it. It's frustrating for me to hear the media talk about it.
Yeah, which is why shows like yours are so important, because here we get to take a nice deep dive, and there you can talk for an hour. We'll give you a minute if you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. They'll have some expert on. They'll get like a few lines in, and that's it. And then they make it a clickbait headline out of whatever they said, and there's no actual substance to the news story.
They used to have a debunker that would come on and basically attack you. What other field of research is there where they come on and bring on a scientist or someone who's studying any subject, and then they bring on someone else who tries to tear it down?
Well, that's why I said suck it, Neil deGrasse Tyson, because I would see him brought on and talk about just talk down about the whole UFO subject. Years ago, I've seen them bring Neil deGrasse Tyson on. I've seen him do it in interviews and
He's
just talk
gotta
snidely
know.
about it.
Anyone with any intelligence has to know this is a real phenomenon.
That was the point there. I mean, not saying that Neil deGrasse Tyson isn't a smart man. Obviously, he is, to get all the degrees and the reputation he has. But he's a very arrogant man, in my opinion, for his comments that he's made. And I want him to eat his hat now. You know what I'm saying? Because what does he say to this stuff now, huh? What do you say, Neil? Because I like people like Michio Kaku, was always open. Like, I don't know. I mean, I believe people have the experiences. He didn't down talk people. He never has on it. He's very open to the ideas, and he'd get into the physics and possibilities. But Neil deGrasse Tyson be like, oh, you're stupid.
Yeah. Do your homework. If you're skeptical of this, and I don't mean to be rude, but you haven't done your homework. You have to investigate. I challenge a skeptic to do one simple thing. Ask your circle, your family, your friends, your coworkers, people you love and trust, who you know are not going to lie, who you can absolutely.
I bet there's at least one person in there that's had an encounter of some
100%.
kind.
Yeah.
That's how prevalent it is, though. And, why there's been such an avid denial by people like Neil deGrasse Tyson that know the possibility that there's life out there. They know that. They know scientifically it's, the possibility of life existing elsewhere than here is very probable.
Well, I hope for his sake and ours that he's not a paid disinformant. Because look at Donald Menzel, the research Stanton Friedman did on him. It's pretty clear this guy was a paid disinformant.
Paid him, right. That definitely is the case. Hey, Dan, I saw Dan trying to call in. Hold on. We're going to be going to commercial break soon. Dan, I would love to hear what you have to say. So call in after the commercial break. We're going to go to here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, think about it like Majestic 12. They had that. They had military and scientists on that committee, if it existed, if it was real. That probably got broken up during the Nixon era, and they moved it out to private contractors. But whatever it is, they have to have prominent scientists somewhere working on this. Some people thought Carl Sagan was like Majestic 12 or something like that, or he was involved and he couldn't talk about it. That they would have to call in prominent scientists. But as I said, when they bring in somebody like Bob Lazar, it's just a engineer working at Los Alamos, not any huge credentials, and they bring him into the project. Well, no wonder our military hasn't gotten so far, but the private contractors, they're buying up whoever the best scientists are coming out. Obviously, they got the money. To say you're going to work for us and we're going to show you some stuff, some magic, some reverse engineering, but you can't ever talk about it. You wonder how many prominent physicists we see on TV and stuff and that do have some knowledge of it because they've had to work on the project.
Yeah, well, Clyde Tombaugh, discoverer of Pluto, he came forward and said he's seen UFOs. A number of professional astronomers have said the same. So
how can they miss them?
To them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, at least astronomers are going to talk about it. But you got to think the guys that are involved in the actual physics, like actual physicists and stuff that are trying to figure out the reality and fabric of the universe. This is what the stuff you would have to be. You need these kind of minds working on this gravity bending, warp field, 0-point energy technology. How many of those guys have signed NDAs or are involved in it, and that's why they talk so snidely about it. I don't know. I really don't know. But we got to go to our last commercial break, and I'll open up the phone lines when we come back from this commercial break. I saw Dan trying to call in. Hold on, Dan. After this commercial break, call in, join the conversation with our guest, Preston Dennett, tonight when we come back.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I don't want to hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDev.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do, re,
Egon!
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID Jblandoo or Jblandparanormalsoup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest has been Preston Dennett. He's a UFO investigator, paranormal researcher, author of over 30 books and 100 articles. He's been on TV. One of my favorite guests to have on to get into the subject of aliens, which we've last several shows have been really focused on the alien presence on this planet now and UFO disclosure. And tonight, I do have a question from the Patreon group. If you do join or support the show, $1, $2 a month, $5 a month, whatever you want to do, you do get access to our Patreon chat room, which I neglected to check earlier. Sorry, Adrian. She's got a question in there I want to get to. As well, I will now open up the phone lines if you want to call in and join this conversation. I know, Dan, you were trying to call. If I can get this, there we go. Lines are open. Call into the show. Join the conversation. We only got less than a half hour left, so let's go ahead and get right back into it. Thank you for staying with us here, Preston. We're getting some phone calls, and I got one person on the line. I'm going to hold there, and then we'll get to them in just a second. I want to get to this question from our Patreon, from Adrian. So, question for Preston. Have you seen any changes in recent contact reports? Are there more or less, or is it about the same statistically?
Oh, it's a great question, Adrian. It's less, actually. There's been a severe drop-off in onboard encounters over the past couple of years, but there's before that been a steady increase. I don't know if that's because people are becoming more aware of this phenomena. I suspect it is. I'm guessing it's been pretty level over the years, and people are just becoming more aware of it or more inclined to report it. Because if you look at the files of MUFON and NUFORC, the two big reporting centers, they show a steady increase in the number of reports they get. But since 2020 or so, 2021, it's fallen off a cliff. So
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, well, some contactees have told me that basically our magnetic fields of our planet, all the major coronal mass ejections and stuff that's going on, have made it too dangerous to fly.
Well, so then we have less sightings or less, at least them not bringing us up in the cockpit for a ride.
Facing another Carrington-type event that's going to knock out our grid. So we'll see.
Ooh, yeah, there's a lot of talk of that. They're talking about that with cyber attacks, but that's a whole other subject. I want to get to the phone line here. We got Dan on the line. How you doing tonight, Dan?
Okay. Kind of fighting off a cold, but I'm okay.
Oh, yeah. Take care of yourself,
Hello.
man.
Preston, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you, other than feeling under the weather?
I was a little apprehensive at first, but I was trying to keep this as brief as possible. And I know I've sent you stuff that I don't even talk to my wife about. Just with you. Wondering if you had access to my painting, triangle painting.
Well, Preston hasn't seen it, no. I don't know if I have that in my Dropbox. I don't. To show him. But you have a question on it, Dan?
I'd say I've had two kind of near-death scenarios. I suffer from PTSD, and a lot of this has come out of that through and remembering all the way back to my childhood, some things. But just curious. Doesn't have the triangle painting, but
I can testify that Dan's made some incredible paintings of extraterrestrials, craft that, from an experience you had, Dan, the triangle craft, that are, you're a great artist. They're very detailed.
Yeah, I always appreciate when
I was proud of that painting because
Go ahead, Dan.
I was pretty proud of how that turned out because, after the second time, my art kind of changed in a way, and I've been trying to get it, for a year or so. It just never worked out, and finally it's there for me, so to paint it in perspective from my point of view on the ground. The orders, put it back in order, but a few questions about craft and beings, and this is just things I've experienced throughout my life, but triangle had the red in the middle and 6 smaller lights around that center point. Lights were kind of 45 degrees in a way, pointed down, and it kind of arced up into itself. Looks like a 3-pointed symmetrical triangle with,
seeing if I can get
I don't know, it looked kind of like a Chinese star to me. Yeah. See, this thing I talked to Jason when this happened. I had an idea of the being I saw in my mind, but it's like I don't have that anymore. So the thing I remember is looking up and seeing dark. I'm 5'9", so it was about a foot taller than me. So I do remember looking up, but not seeing. Still some missing things in there that I'm still trying to work out, like how I ended up outside twice, going out the door twice. And the most memorable part was I was facing the wrong way. Heard this sound taunts me every day. It's like this, like something cutting through the wind. It was a little breezy. It's like March, fall. March, but about fall time.
I got your one of the pictures up right now that you sent me.
That's the one there.
This is Dan's artwork.
Amazing. Yeah.
Tried to get every important moment that I saw when it powered down and was kind of just natural, very unnatural kind of thing. When it was cutting through the air, and I turned around and looked at it. See that image in the upper corner, just arcing up like that. When I turned around, I seen it, and you could just hear it just cutting through the breeze. The breeze behind it started to hit me, and I say it started to remember how I felt like each moment and everything, and it just all came back and this out as quickly as I could. It raised up and see that, like when you put your TV on high frame mode, it's unnatural looking, like it's fake almost. The way it in the sky like that, and then just paused and just went on its way. See it, middle image, and this like blue.
When was it that you saw this, Dan? I remember you were living with your parents. You had that encounter.
I had just come out of some strange stuff with my parents, but this was in 1998. Just living with my first wife in a trailer. It was on a lot of 2 trailers. There's a real busy interstate pretty close to my house, so I'm surprised that they've seen this. It's.
And Preston,
we think about it every day.
Me and Dan had the privilege of talking to a pilot that actually flew up to the Belgium Wave triangle ship.
Oh, wow.
We met him through how me and Dan met through a shared video game called Star Wars Squadrons. He was a pilot for the French, but he was like in that working something, whatever they had him fly. He actually flew up to the triangle craft. Said it, shut down his systems and everything.
Wow.
We had to get a friend of ours to translate for us because he only spoke French. But we had that privilege. It was like the classic Belgium Wave, which is again another triangle. My friend Terry Lovelace, he had his huge triangle. That's a whole other thing with the triangle craft.
Yeah, some of the triangles are military. I'm not going to say all of them. There's quite a bit of reporting on that. But when you have something that close, that's pretty unusual. And I've come to suspect that when someone has that close of a sighting, it's more than just a sighting, particularly if you're having some memory of contact beyond that. And the ETs are definitely doing it.
Certainly not all.
Yeah, the military isn't going to just fly their Aurora special triangle craft, whatever it is, right over near your house, but an alien might.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like a very close-up intentional sighting, because when someone sees something within a couple 100 feet or even 1,000, that's a huge red flag that this is more than just a sighting. It's taken me years to come to that conclusion, but I do think that it's deeper levels of contact, that would be the best way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thank you for calling in, bud. do you have another
Time
question?
question. Yeah, let me talk to you about beings. I'm just going to mention these.
Yeah, go for it. I didn't know if you wanted to get into that or not. We don't have a lot of time, so go kind of cut short to it.
Feet, white, round saucer eyes, head that's small but a narrow face, like it fits its body, but the eyes do not fit the body. Loose single.
And tell them what color they are.
Pale white.
Yeah, the eyes seem to be a very prominent feature on ET accounts. It's one of the things most witnesses will mention right off the bat is the feature that's most striking in appearance and often very, very large.
And is that pale white? You remember when E.T. was found like dead in the ditch? And E.T. and he's like that pale white. Is it like that kind of color?
Like it was brighter than that. It's almost like a makeup, like white makeup light. You
Really?
know what I mean?
It's almost like a glow.
So, no glow.
No glow. Didn't sparkle like
Its
Twilight
body
Vapor.
fit its size and had larger than life eyes that were definitely the key to the whole thing. Talk to you about things.
You're doing some stuff with regression, aren't you? Or looking into it?
I will be on my next appointment. It's fit with my other incident too, and it's almost like a meditation is the way I put it.
Or a guided meditation.
Yes, into that memory.
Well, Dan, thank you for calling in. And
honestly think
Go ahead.
Just going to say, I think I already know everything that I know. Oh, I don't know if that's going to unlock anything new to me. But
Well, trust your gut and keep exploring it. And these appointments you're going to, I think you should keep doing. Keep exploring it. Preston, any last thoughts for Dan before he goes?
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to hear you say you're using more of a guided meditation rather than direct regressive hypnosis, because I would always recommend that first. Write everything down in every detail you can remember. Try to do dream work or meditation first before regressive hypnosis, which does work, but you really need someone who's got practice at it, someone who's a legit person to do it, because false memory syndrome is a real thing.
Yeah.
Several studies have shown this, but it absolutely works if done correctly.
Well, thank you, Dan.
I was kind of offered that as well, but I backed off of it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about that either,
Well, I think you're really exploring it through your artwork, too.
It's changed in a way that's different, for sure.
Just trying to see what you're highlighting there, Jamie.
All
right, Dan, I'm going to let you go before we run out of time, though. Thank you for calling in, bud.
So, good night, guys.
All right, have a great night. What was the comment you were trying to show? Since my latest implant, I've been having more contact with them in writing as well as healing and DNA changes. Jamie, can you mention that? Yeah, Ziriana is called in the show. She's got her own contact experiences. I've been on these craft, Jamie, also number 4 and 5. What does she mean by number 4 and 5?
Probably the illustrations that were
what we were showing of Dan's. Yeah, their shuttlecraft is a yellow triangle.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, when you talk to contactees about their DNA, you start to hear some very interesting stories.
Yeah.
About unusual DNA reports.
She's got good stories.
Yeah, a lot of them will talk about how they find out that they have royalty in their family or an extraordinary variety of ethnicities. One guy told me he suffers from this rare condition, maybe suffers, and he has this rare condition called uniparental dysautomy, where almost all his DNA comes from one parent, and the other parent is really not part of it.
Wow.
Of course, the other parent is the contactee.
Right.
So
Like he's got it because it's they don't have the father's DNA because he's hybrid, maybe.
something's going on there. One lady I interviewed, she had her DNA done through Ancestry DNA, and they keep writing her back because there's some segments of DNA they can't identify.
Yeah. See, now you just registered yourself with the government as an alien hybrid. That's why I don't want to give my DNA.
As some unidentifiable DNA also.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But I
really
wasn't getting
interesting.
letters for it.
Our government's they're following they're watching this podcast. Don't doubt it. They
I'd be
are
honored.
contactees, every researcher. They're on top of this. They've got
Well,
all their AI bots on it.
Well, imagine like we were talking about privacy. And if there is some hybrid program going on, or if aliens are messing with our DNA, of course, in my opinion, we're messing with our own DNA with so much toxic soup we live in. But if aliens are messing with our DNA, look, they got this whole database platform now of people freely giving their DNA away for their ancestry.
Yeah, but they've already got it. If you were born after a certain year, they've got your DNA anyway, and it's not hard to get.
Yeah.
If you're a contactee, you're being surveilled anyway. So
They have some interest in family lines. I definitely see that.
no doubt. Yeah.
People that have generational contacts, and sometimes it's just some people get picked up. My experience where I was camping, I felt what I experienced. Happened to be picked up with somebody else. It might have been. The only UFO I ever saw, besides the bright light that I saw in the wilderness that day, that I might have been abducted. When I was a year before that, downtown Michigan City, I saw a cylindrical UFO, no lights, 500 feet up at best.
Oh.
Just downtown Michigan City. It was like the Star Destroyer coming over your head in Star Wars. It was huge. It just came up over our heads, and for some reason, all of us looked up, even though the scene made no sound. It almost felt like it was buzzing in my head, though.
Yeah, well, they'll call out to you telepathically. There's a lot of cases of that where people suddenly run to their window or go outside, or boom, it happens. They absolutely do communicate in very subtle ways at times.
For me, that was the clincher. I'd always been, as a kid, I'd seen weird stuff and all that, but that was my first UFO. And, I'm a sci-fi geek. I believed in ancient aliens. I read Chariots of the Gods before I even saw my first UFO, so I believe our Bible's filled with ancient aliens. So I was a totally believer, But when I saw that, I was like, there's no way that's our military. That's not reverse engineered. No way. Because that thing's huge. The amount of mass being kept afloat, silently hovering downtown Michigan City over our heads. There's no way we got that kind of technology.
No way. Yeah, and contact is so much more common than people realize.
Yeah.
With New Fork and MUFON having hundreds of thousands of recorded cases, well, 1 in 100 people report it. So you can easily times that by, let's be stingy, and just say 10. You're looking at a lot of people who've had this. And I looked at who's having contact and why, because it's evenly divided between men and women. And yes, if you have a history of contact in your family, you're much more likely to be taken on board. It does track families.
It's hard to know for people if they've had a history of contact in their family, because so many people kept quiet about it, especially generations, And sometimes it appears as a matter of other things that come out of people, that they're just diagnosed as mental illness, or they acted weird or strange, or they were very paranoid and locked themselves in their house. Maybe because they were going through some PTSD from an alien probe. A lot of these things were covered up and masked as other things, but there was really a UFO abductions happening. I think that happens with some paranormal cases.
Yeah, well, there's some recorded cases out there that go back 4, 5, 6 generations that we know of.
Yeah.
In terms of very clear-cut eyewitness testimony, which is super interesting, because that is absolutely a pattern. People who display any level of psychic ability are much more likely to have contact. You're much more likely to have contact if you're outside or driving along a lonely highway at night.
Yeah.
But
when I went to New Hampshire, I went and drove. What was the road? I went and found the Betty and Barney Hill. Tried to find the road that they drove on. I don't know how close I got to it, but I was out on my own. I don't know if I was tempted fate or whatever, but as a UFO history, I'm like, I'm in New Hampshire. I got to check this out.
I did a study on UFO healings, right? Subject of one of my
Yeah.
books. And I found a really interesting pattern. A lot of people who are being healed, and this translates to general contact, are people who are like doctors, social workers, environmentalists, human rights activists, nurses, teachers, people who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity. And at first, it was a loose pattern, but I'm seeing
You
it
think
more
they're
and
reaching
more.
out to people that they generally feel are trying to help humanity?
Yes, which I think speaks towards their benevolence, because
Yeah.
this is what people have been basically told. Because one couple I interviewed in Sedona, I asked them flat out, "Why don't you just come down and fix everything?" They said, "We can't do that. You made these problems. It would not solve anything for you. It would just make matters worse. It's up to you to solve your own problems, but we help those who are helping others." So I thought that was an interesting statement because I keep hearing it.
There was something I wanted to bring up earlier and I'd forgotten. I feel like they also are interested in what's going on with our weather and the weather modification and some of this extreme weather. It seems
Yeah, my
like
30 inches of snow I got right now.
I myself am seeing more of these shadow type things happening during this extreme weather that gives me kind of a feeling like it's something interested in this crazy weather. And I'm hearing that from other people too.
Well, you got to think
Maybe
aliens are
they're
worried about what we're
exploring
doing with
the
nuclear.
Earth.
If aliens are worried about what we're doing with nuclear weapons and we're doing weather modification experiments, they got to be concerned about that. We're doing altering ourselves with genetics in different ways through pharmaceutical or whatever, and then they're interested in our genetics. So you think they probably have an interest in that too?
All the stuff we're pumping into the air and spraying from the planes and
Yeah.
blocking the sun.
When you go to the grocery store, look to see if your food is genetically modified.
You can't find bread. You cannot find bread. It does not have bioengineered on it.
Not one cookie or cracker unless it comes from Canada or
Yeah, well, if you're careful, you can find it, but you have to be so careful.
Yeah, no, me and my wife have been on a search.
Shredded wheat
Trust me.
was okay, and Sun Chips was okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a Midwestern, so I like my ranch, my Hidden Valley Ranch. My wife pulls up the bottle. She goes, "Look, this is made with bioengineered products." I'm like, "God dang it! I got my ranch. I'm Midwest. Give me my ranch." No, you can't get anything now. It doesn't have. You read it, bioengineered.
Yeah, that's why you got to look for the natural stuff. And if in Europe, they've outlawed it. And there's a lot of food that's
because they don't have an FDA that's completely bought out by the people they regulate.
And they don't have the laundry list of extras that we have in our food.
Yeah, so go to the foreign food section. It's there. You can find a bunch of good stuff.
But how is this changing us genetically by consuming this and then all this toxic waste and all this stuff? And if these aliens are doing this hybrid program and they're, involved in our genetics or trying to make some kind of hybrid being, this would affect them. This would affect their project.
Yeah, I think they're doing their best to protect our genetics, and that's why they follow certain genetic lines. This is my assessment based on, don't believe me. Look at the first-hand cases and make up your own mind about it.
That's
But
kind of the
certainly
vibe
what
I
think
get.
is going on.
What do you think's happening to the hybrid children? Because a lot of times these abductees talk about meeting their children that are hybrids. What do you think? What happens to them? Are they integrated or are they
No,
on
I
ships?
don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it for a second that there's human-looking ETs walking around.
Yeah.
The ones that are what we would call hybrids. Because I think we've got some good indication of that. But I've talked to people who've held their hybrid baby and that grew up and it's an adult and they go up on board and they meet them.
Yeah.
And they basically say, "Oh yeah, we're watching over you. You've got this medical problem. We're going to heal you. I am your son." So they're just living their lives out.
But what's the end game of that hybridization has always been the question. And I know we're almost out of time, but what's the end game of them mixing their DNA with us? What does it solve a problem they're having? Is it, do you think they have a reproduction issue?
Yes, I do, because that's come up over and over and over again, particularly with the Greys, that they do have a lot of problems with gamma radiation because they're doing a lot of space travel. and did do genetic manipulation in a way that bred out some of them, their emotions and their ability to reproduce. Because we hear variations of this over and over again from contactees. But the main message contactees are getting is we are you, you are us, we are one, we share the same ancestry, different variations of this message. I don't think it's a nefarious thing like David Jacobs says, they're going to come take over our planet.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
They could have done that anytime. They don't need hybridization. But I mean, just look at our future talk of space travel. I've already seen where they talk about genetics might be able to solve. I saw an article on this where they're talking about genetics might be able to solve our issues with radiation. You know, I saw they did that in a show 100 was what it was called. Like they were genetically altering themselves to withstand the radiation from nuclear wars and stuff. You know, but that we're going to have to genetically alter ourselves to be able to travel through space effectively.
Yeah, well, it's apparently what the little gray AI
Right.
are for. That's what they use them for, because they can withstand radiation. Those are the ones who come down and scoop people up and aren't super communicative or emotional and freak people out.
And think about the, you know, like, I mean, my friend Terry Lovelace, when he had his abduction, he had radiation poisoning after it. Him and his friend, they ended up in the hospital. After their encounter, you know,
like that,
yeah, you know what, you know, they were maybe brought into an environment where these aliens need that kind of radiation for their survival, but it makes us sick, and maybe they're trying to find an in-between hybrid that can travel both worlds. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say for sure, but I don't think radiation is anybody's friend, and the ETs
not usually
have problems with it.
Yeah. I just always find it interesting when people, I mean, some of them, I think the radiation cases, like the classic one, what was it, down in Texas, where the family, the two women and the little kid were radiated, was a military nuclear project that went wrong. But I think, but I think some of these abduction cases where people come back, you know, or these contact cases really of abduction, like kind of like the Terry Lovelace and others, what's his name from Fire in the Sky, Travis Walton, you know, you get too close to these ships or get too close to them or whatever the environment they're in can make you sick if you're in it too long. Like they have to exist in a different environment than us, which I always found interesting.
Good evidence of that. A lot of contactees have light sensitivity.
Yeah.
It turns out, I think that's the most common injury. I still think the healings outnumber the injuries. Most of the injuries seem to be accidental.
Right, like it's part of the environment and it's part of what's going on. It can't be helped, kind of maybe what you know why these things happen.
When I was looking at the healing cases, you know, the top 10 causes of death, according to the World Health Organization or the Center of Disease Control, ETs have cured every single one of those in people.
Yeah, and they can't have that.
So
we got a lot of chronic disease. We got a lot of chronic disease here for the aliens to go around and cure, but that'd be another multi-billion-dollar industry that I don't want to end. Well, thank you so much, Preston, for being on. Always love having you on. Definitely going to have to get you back on the show in the future as more of this crazy, weird UFO stuff gets more in the media, maybe. We'll have much more to talk about probably in the next year or so because they supposedly are trying to get to the bottom of this. I doubt it.
It's going to be an interesting year. But, yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thanks very much.
And one last thing, you get any information where you want people to check out your work?
Oh, yeah, just punch in my name on the internet. It should take you to my YouTube channel, my website. My latest book is Humanoids and High Strangeness. My favorite is Symmetry, a true UFO adventure. I'm about to put out Not From Here, Volume 5, all about the weird outlying cases of contact. So, yeah, happy to hear from people if they've got a story or a comment or a question.
All right. Well, thank you, Preston. You're always awesome. I can't wait. One day we're going to get you back on the show and we'll talk more about this because time always goes by fast when we have you on. But that is it for the show, guys. We will be back next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and also on the Paranormal Radio app, Talkstream Lives, Paranormal Radio app, Paranormal Soup radio channel. You can listen 24/7 reruns and live on Sunday nights. Thank you, everybody who shares out the show. Keep telling people about Paranormal Soup, where the weird happens live every Sunday night. And thank you to all the Patreons. Your $2 a month, $5 a month, your donations help pay the bills for the show. Thank you guys tonight, for Adrian for your comment and our Patreon. Again, join Patreon and get to our exclusive chat. And to Dan for calling into the show. Thank you, Preston. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Rob. Everybody have a great night. See you next Sunday.